Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. So, we've been going pretty strong with the book study. We actually are coming up at the very end of yet another book, which is A Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism, Part 1. So, it took us a minute, but we're through it. But technically, we're only halfway through it because this book is actually two books. We're done with the first part. We'll be heading on to the second part soon enough. But before we get there, this final section of the book is going to cover some important topics, as all the other chapters do. But specifically, this is going to cover how to practically work with the tree in everyday circumstances. It's also going to touch on everyone's favorite subject, the qlippoth. So this should be pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. So, greetings to everyone. Welcome, welcome. Peace, peace. Shashat Ra the Aries. Greetings. Sunshine Chick. Always present, always beautiful, always intelligent, always great to see you. Kev Rose, SS God, peace and greetings. CJ, peace, peace. Society Ejects. Peace, bro, peace. Just got home, time to eat. Right on, bro, right on. What you having tonight? Reina Leona, peace, peace. Pablo X69, greetings. T-Dog, peace and greetings. So yeah, let's jump into it. We're going to be going over the final three chapters of A Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism by Gareth Knight on this beautiful Tuesday, as we can see with the red light. And I hope you did your daily mantras today. Beautiful day, beautiful day. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, so much, so much. One more thing actually. One more thing. Hold on. Almost forgot. By the way, if you didn't get the book Samkhya Darshan by Swami Niranjan Ananda Saraswati yet, don't sleep on yourself, because really this book here is going to answer a whole lot of questions that you may have when it comes to magic and spirituality. So that's the whole point of us reading these books, is because they clarify a lot of the loopholes and open-ended questions that haven't really been able to be answered. Most of the time, these questions aren't able to be answered because we don't understand the origin of this science, right? Spirituality has an origin, or at least we can say most of what we do and work with today in terms of spirituality has a common point of study, right? Nobody came up with anything, but certain cultures have perfected the art. Certain cultures have explored the art to a degree of mastery, basically, to a degree of mastery. So do yourself a favor. If you really, really want to understand, you can save yourself a lot of time and a lot of money if you just go ahead and start studying Samkhya, or any one of the very ancient systems, right? The older the better. Or I should say the more complete the better. Because there's a lot of ancient systems that are incomplete as far as our records of them. Some of the more popular ones are actually incomplete. We only have pieces and fragments, which is why people can't really explain what they do or why they do it. So, let's see. Nuru, peace and greetings, my friend. Peace and greetings. Turn on the light here, because I guess I could see with just the ring light, but this light's better. So much better. Philip the Prince. Good afternoon. Welcome. Oh, comfy, comfy. This beanbag chair is a whole lot better than just sitting on the ground. We're gonna try it out today. Sear, peace, peace. Shanice Rockford, peace. L Dub, peace. Jamie Noel, welcome, welcome. Let me know if the music is too loud so I can turn it down before I start. Al Dickey, good evening, my brother. Good evening. Society Eject says, may I see the front cover of your book? I have the gray and black one, and the words are super tiny. I got the individual one, so mine, the cover is green and red. Like, this is mine. This is the red one. That's book one, and then book two is the green one. It's got the same picture. Book two is green, book one is red, but together they're black. And that's probably why the text is so tiny, so they can save, pages. But it's the same book. So far, everyone's confirmed that like the page numbers and everything is the same. So same thing so far. Cool. Philip the Prince says, what up, Trav? Just got done chanting the Shiva mantra you posted. Definitely one of the more challenging ones I've done. Got 30 minutes in, feeling good from it. Thank you. Yeah, and there's a lot of different versions of that particular mantra, the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. Just find one that works for you. That's one that I usually like to go to sleep to. And it's very pleasant, very peaceful, very calm. But there's so many others. I got a whole playlist full of different versions. Some are there's one that gets all 108 rounds done in like 7 minutes. But yeah, cool stuff. Sashat Ray the Aries says music is just a little loud. Okay, I can fix that. The side eject says, oh, okay, that's why the words are so tiny. 1 and part 2 is in the same book. Yeah. Kev Rose, SS God, this is the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. If you look up the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, you'll see it's the one that has like Shiva on the right side, and he's like in a white color. He's in a meditative pose, and it says miracle mantra, and it's like probably like 4 to 6 hours long. It says miracle mantra. It's got Shiva on the thumbnail, and he's off to the right. You'll see it. Otherwise, I'll have to post it in the comments later because I can't post it while I'm doing this on the phone. But if someone else can, that would be quite helpful. Philip, if you have the link, that'd be nice. But you don't have to if you don't want to. But if you can, it wouldn't hurt. All right, so enough about that. Let's flip this camera around and get started. Yeah, I'll turn the music down a little bit. Why not? Beans. So Sashat, this is your first live stream. You usually catch the replays. Well, awesome. Certainly ask questions in the chat. If I don't get to it, then somebody else will, because everyone here is super helpful and also super knowledgeable, because that's just how we do it. All right, so Will Trent, peace, welcome. The Shiva mantra is the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. That's the specific one we're talking about. Sly, peace, peace. All right. Reina Leona, peace, peace. Listening, working, and welding. Nice. All right, well, let's get going. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but it's all love. Love, love, love. Peace and greetings. Flower says, just type miracle mantra. It's the second one. Boom, there you go. All right, well, let's get going here. The final 3 chapters. It's about 20 pages, so that should roughly be maybe, I don't know, 3 hours. 3 hours and some change. We shall see. Yeah, I believe that's it right there. Yep. Page 227. Chapter XX. Thank you, Sunshine Chick. That is the link right there. All right, chapter 20. Miscellaneous attributions. 1. Under the title of miscellaneous attributions, we include all references to precious stones, plants, animals, real and imaginary, drugs and perfumes, alchemical symbolism, the organs of the human body, and so on. 2. Much of these attributions are taken from old books, and generally speaking, they're not only arbitrary, but chaotic. Before giving credence to any ancient texts, it would be well to recall the words of Thomas Vaughan, one of the few spiritually well-informed early Kabbalists. There are many Platonics, and this late century hath afforded them some apish disciples, who discourse very boldly of the similitudes of inferiors and superiors. But if we thoroughly search their trash, it is a pack of small conspiracies, namely of the heliotrope and the sun, iron and the lodestone, the wound and the weapon. It is excellent sport to hear how they crow, being roosted on these pitiful particulars, as if they knew the universal magnet which binds this great frame and moves all the members of it to a mutual compassion. This is a humor much like that of Don Quixote, who knew Dulcinea but never saw her. Colum Terre, 1650. 3. The kind of thing which Vaughan had in mind in his reference to heliotrope and the sun, for example, can be seen by opening at random any of the old grimoires and magical recipe books which, besides being treasured by collectors, are reproduced ad nauseum in modern books on the subject. And that still happens today. A lot of the books on magic that are available on Amazon are pretty much worthless, because you'll find that a lot of them are just reprints of these super old books that don't really make any sense. You know, we're talking about Eye of Newt and Claw of Wart, you know, like these weird recipes and weird alchemical symbols, and it's so cryptic to the point that it's not even useful, right? There's so many grimoires on the market like that. I remember when I finally got fed up, I think it was the Book of Black Magic. I think it was by A.E. Waite. And the cover of it looked cool and the description was cool, but when I opened it up, it was a bunch of useless stuff. Like, what am I supposed to do with all this? So I stopped buying a lot of those old medieval style magic books, because although, like he said here, they're great for collectors, but most of those you can't really do much with. But you might be able to work one formula out of the Abramelin book or something like that. I mean, sure. To some people, if they happen to be able to decipher those super cryptic writings, then yeah, they might be useful. But instead of going through all that, the route that I've chosen here is so much more useful and appropriate for my time and for my effort. I don't have months and years to waste. I mean, I do, I guess, but that's not my purpose or my mission right now. But hey, if it is your passion to look into those old books and collect them and try to figure them out, by all means, go ahead and do that. Somebody's got to do it, just not me. And you'll kind of see the same thing also with the Goetia, which is why a lot of people find difficulty, because everyone that makes a book on the Goetia pretty much keeps rehashing the same information from these same old books. And they seem so deep and so cool to people who don't understand what's happening. but I digress. The heliotrope, for example, or marigold, was associated with the sun because of the superstition that it always turned to face the sun. Leading by some strange logic from this, Albert Magnus solemnly declared that if any were produced in a church, no adulterous woman would be able to leave the building while it remained exposed. This divine aid to morality may have come about from the notion that as the sun produced life, so any plant connected with the sun, as regards color, shape, legend, and so on, would have similar attributes, and so could be used either as a sexual stimulant or perhaps as a moral antidote to this wholesale sexual rejuvenation in the more subtle ways mentioned above. You see what I mean? And a lot of these formulas were basically assumptions based on, well, if this plant faces the sun and moves towards the sun, then we can use it to cause people to tell the truth. And although it makes sense if you talk about it that way, it isn't practical. Like, you're not going to force somebody to tell the truth by showing them a marigold. You know what I'm saying? Taste of oxygen. Peace, peace. You're asking a question, but I have no idea what you're asking a question about. If you could clarify, then maybe we could give you a good answer. Whoops. I kicked my tripod. Number 4. Correspondences can be made between the Sephiroth and various plants, animals, etc., but it must be remembered that the correspondences are only psychological devices which can be used either as a technical exercise in playing about with the concepts of the tree, or as a means of concentrating the focus of the conscious mind in meditation or ritual magic. Boom, right there. Right there. If you're highlighting your book, I would highlight that verse right there, because this is how you use correspondences in magic, right? You'll see all kinds of correspondences associated with all kinds of different spirits or aspects of the tree of life, etc., etc. But it's not that those items themselves are magical. They're for you to use in meditation, because in contemplation of these objects, it's going to lead you back to what force you're actually trying to come into contact with, right? He says they're psychological devices which can be used as a technical exercise in playing about with the concepts of the tree, or as a means of concentrating the focus. That's what correspondence is about, right? So no item in itself is really going to be more magical than another. All right. You use these items to tap in using your subjective mind, right? All these different items in the objective realm, none of this stuff is like this pin. I could send this pin to you. I could ship it to you, right? It's not magical, but the associations that you've placed onto it, the fact that the horn has traced these words of countless, spiritual texts, you could make it magical through your belief in it. You get what I'm saying? So it isn't the pen. It would be your level of belief in this object, your level of contemplation, concentration, and association on the object. So it's not the stone or the crystal that's magical. It's how you activate it with your subjective mind. Is that clear? So you got all these people looking for the Holy Grail, or the Spear of Longinus, I think it's called, the one that pierced Christ on the side. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, there are some exceptions. Everything has an etheric body, and it could be that because I use this pen to trace these magical words, there could be some type of etheric resonance on the pen, right? Yeah, we can make a case for that. But typically, for the most part, for overwhelmingly most things on this world, they're pretty plain and ordinary, and that a human has to activate it. Even if this was magical, it would only be because I made it so. It would only be because subjective contemplation made it so. So keep that in mind also. It's not about what candle do I use, Trav. It's how you use the candle. So, number 5. Crowley, for example, has made exhaustive lists of correspondences in 777, but they are really of no use to anyone except to Crowley himself, and he is dead. The best that can be made of them is by the technical exercise of going through them and trying to think out why they were so attributed. And even so, one will be learning less about the Kabbalah than about how Crowley's mind worked. Look, I could make my own Liber 777, right? I could literally sit here and make a book chock full of correspondences, and I could sell it. And people could buy it and be like, oh, this is the book right here, y'all. But really, it would only be useful for me. It would only be useful for me. And you could make your own book, and it will be valid for you. But instead of, like you said here, instead of learning about the Kabbalah, you just be learning about how my mind worked, or how Crowley's mind worked. And if that's your passion, if you're interested in the person known as Crowley and how he thought, then that would be great for you. Society Eject says, "LOL, he be on Crowley ass." Yeah, this was a little beef they had, Crowley and the Inner Society of Light. They didn't quite see eye to eye. Al Dickey, thank you for your donation. I appreciate you. Let's continue. So, in his list of animals, real and imaginary, for example, one can see that God, man, and woman relate to Kether, Chokmah, and Bina. Check this out. The attribution of the unicorn to Chesed, blue, is less obvious. But the basilisk is related to Gibera. Oh, there's the secret. That's why I've got a blue and a red unicorn pin. Did anyone guess already? Or did I just spoil it? The attribution of the unicorn to Chesed is less obvious, but the basilisk is related to Gibera, no doubt, because its glance turned people to stone. Though in this case there is an obvious parallel with the Medusa, which is part of the Perseus myth, and thus perhaps better related to Doth. To Tifereth, which is why I've got the yellow in the center. To Tifereth, he relates the phoenix, Ashe, to the order of the unicorn, Ashe to the order of the phoenix. To Tifereth, he relates the phoenix, the lion, and the child. The child is one of the magical images, and the lion is there because Leo is a solar astrological sign, and also king of the beasts, while the phoenix, in that it rises from its own ashes, corresponds to the sacrificed and resurrected god of Tifereth. Crowley could have included the pelican, an obvious Tifereth bird, because of its association with sacrifice. It was said to pierce its own breast with its beak in order to feed its young, and was often likened to Christ. Have you guys ever seen that? Like, there's pictures of these birds that literally feed their young their own blood. Like, they stab themselves with their beaks and drain the blood so that their kids can eat. It's a bizarre thing to watch. I thought it was fake at first, but no, this really happens. What was God thinking when he made those? Jin Jenny, peace. Jin Jenny asks, what chapter are we on? We're on chapter XX, chapter 20. Is yours different? If you guys have the big black version, is this not on page 229? Because I know earlier the pages lined up. Let me know in the chat. Mystic Moons says Twilight Birds. DeAndre Whitley, peace. Phoenix King in the building. Okay. And see, I love that the pages are the same because that proves that they didn't change anything, right? Because sometimes you'll get additions that shift and take things out and put things in. But this is one of those that actually stays true to the original. So that's really cool. bag isn't as comfy as I thought. I might just go back to the floor. The lynx Crowley applies to Netzach because it is an animal sacred to Venus, whilst the hermaphrodite is the magical image of Hod. The jackal's relation to Hod may have a qliphotic basis. The elephant is one of the classical creatures said to support the world and thus is related to the foundation, Yesod. Whilst the Sphinx is placed in Malkuth, either because it contains beasts related to the four elements, or because it was traditionally at the portal of the Egyptian mystery temple below the pyramids. Six. Whilst one can see the reason for most of the attributions, there are many others that could be made with equal validity, and frankly, with equal little point. Some of Crowley's attributions are taken from visions he had whilst working on certain parts of the tree, but that means only that they were significant for Crowley in that context at that time. You get that? See, a lot of times you'll see people come online with the visions or the downloads they had or whatever, but you have to remember most of those visions and downloads that the YouTubers are giving you and social media people are giving you, not saying that they're wrong, but most of those are for them specifically. Because think about it, we're working with the subconscious mind, which speaks in the language of symbols. So someone's having a download about a very specific symbol. Most of the time, it has to do with them and their lives. So keep that in mind also. Every now and then, they might actually tap into something that's wider than them. And in that case, it may apply to you as well. But typically, for the most part, when you see people giving these reports of these visions they had, they mostly apply just to them specifically. So like you said, some of Crowley's attributions are taken from visions he had while working on certain parts of the tree. But that means only they were significant for Crowley in that context at that time. Arbitrary symbols are not made universal by the simple process of putting them in print, or in this case, publishing a video on YouTube. Society Ejects, that's a very good point. He says, yep, that's why I stopped trying to interpret people's dreams. Me too, right? People ask all the time, well, Trev, I had a dream about a dragon and a snake. What does that mean? I literally can't tell you what that means. What is your relationship with dragons and snakes? I can tell you how to interpret your own dreams, but, for me to just tell you something and you to believe it, that's not going to help you. But yeah, that's a really good point, Society Ejects. I'll read the sentence again. Arbitrary symbols are not made universal by the simple process of putting them in print or by publishing a YouTube video. Writers on occultism seem to love to fly to tabular information, but in so doing, they do more harm than service. For tabular information does nothing but appeal to the type of mind that delights in making imaginary journeys with the use of old railway timetables. And though much of the spiritual journeys of the Kabbalah are done in the imagination, it is the creative imagination that is needed to gain any benefit, not the second-hand imagination of juggling about with someone else's data. And that's also one of the reasons why I don't really spend too much time talking about personal visions that I've had. Although I think they're pretty awesome, I also realize they don't help you specifically very much. They're entertaining, but just like what he said here, much of the spiritual journeys of the Kabbalah are done in the imagination, right? Much of the spiritual journeys of the Kabbalah are done in the imagination, which is Yesod. It is the creative imagination that is needed to gain any benefit. Please hear this, especially if you're new and you're looking for answers. It is the creative imagination that is needed to gain any benefit, not the second-hand imagination of juggling about with someone else's data. Now, don't get ridiculous. This doesn't mean you can't learn from someone else, because obviously we're reading a book written by someone else. But this stuff isn't his imagination. This is a collection of information that is verifiable, right? It's backed up. You can track it and trace it yourself. You can test it yourself. It isn't simply something that somebody made up. So just keep that in mind. There's a difference between entertainment and education. Try your best to be able to figure that out in your studies. Number 7, the whole purpose of symbolism is that, like coinage, it stands for something real. Symbolism, like money, is meant to be used and cashed in for something of value. Many make the mistake of being esoteric numismatists. Somebody look that word up, because I've never seen that before. Numismatists. Many make the mistake of being esoteric numismatists, mere collectors of symbols. Oh, well, that's what it means. Number 8. Certain precious stones and incenses are used in ceremonial, but apart from the difficulty of organizing it, ceremonial is best left alone by the tyro. Here again, the incenses are largely arbitrary and are best left to the choice of the operator, who has some practical experience of their effect on his own consciousness. For general group work, ordinary church incense is perhaps the best thing to use. So I hope this doesn't hurt anybody's business, but you can't necessarily go to somebody's online store and buy an incense for money or an incense for love or an incense for this, that, or a third. Because while that may work for the person who makes the incense, you have to make the actual connection in your head. You see what I mean? You see how that works? You could buy any incense you want. Like my cousin the other day brought me some Vishnu incense, and that was awesome. I really appreciated it. But unless I burn that incense and think of Vishnu, what makes it Vishnu incense other than the package, right? But I mean, I guess a case could be made if you don't know any better, then you're going to burn the incense and think that it's Vishnu incense, thereby making it Vishnu incense. So I guess it still works, but it's best to understand how these things work instead of just blindly jumping into whatever. Mystic Moons asks, would you say then that deity or sacred religious text has no power until we give it? Reminds me of Schrodinger's cat in the box quantum theory. Oh my God. Wait a minute. Are you serious? Holy shit. Thank you so much. Hell yeah. Wait though. Check this out. I got a gift. You guys ever seen this before? Zebra Cakes ice cream. Who knew that Little Debbie makes ice cream? Man, that's so cool. Thank you so much. Wow. Mystic Moons, you said, would you say then that deity or sacred religious text has no power until we give it? Reminds me of the Schrodinger cat in the box quantum theory. Absolutely. It is like somewhat of a thin gray line, because like what I mentioned in the other video that I did, you have to build the form in your imagination. And once the proper form is built in your imagination, then it can be filled with the associated force. You get what I'm saying? So you have to build your awareness of the chakras before you can start working with the chakras. The potential is there. The potential for all these deities, all these energies, and all this stuff, the potential is there. But until you create an association within your own personal framework, then you're kind of just, fumbling around in the dark. It's hit and miss. But you've got to create a solid foundation inside. That's what Kabbalah is all about. You got to create the tree of life within yourself. And then in that creation, you open a space for the spiritual activity to work in your favor. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Scarface says, appreciate Travi. Stay true, stay true. Thank you. Society Eject says, a numismatist, a specialist in numismatics. Numismatists include collectors, specialist dealers, and scholars who use coins and other currency in object-based research. Cool. Society Eject says, "Yo, LOL, Travis, that shit is dangerous." I'm ready for the danger. I'm welcoming it. I'm open to it. Jenny says, "Oh man, I got some unicorn cakes at the 99 cent that I gave to Alegba. We both loved it." I bet. Justin Cancelier says that was a great question. Yes, it was. Randa Leona says, "Oh, I just remembered they said it on Lovecraft Country. You have to have enough discipline to create your own spell." Very true. I.e., your own energy. That's right. So yeah, that's the point of all these books and all these grimoires. I mean, like right here underneath this one, I've got the Encyclopedia of Spirits, right? In order for me to work with one of the spirits, I'm going to have to work with the correspondences and the images and the different things associated with that spirit to build a space. If you guys have the book Demons of Magic, you'll notice that when you're working with any one of those goetic spirits, they have 5 different keys that basically give you 5 things to focus your 5 senses on. A particular smell, a particular texture, a particular taste, right? And those things are helping you create the space for that spirit to work in your favor. Now, I'm giving away the material of my book, but since we're on the topic, I might as well. Besides, there's only 46 people here. You guys aren't gonna spill all the beans. By the way, with there being 47 people and only 32 likes, if you're here, you might as well hit the like button because obviously you like this content. And it helps YouTube to promote my videos across its own web. Mystic Moon says Lovecraft dropped a lot of knowledge. It's a shame it got canceled. Yeah, it's instead of thinking of it as a shame it got canceled, it was quite a blessing that something like that even happened, right? Before that, such a show would not have existed. So it was actually a really good thing that it even existed in the first place. And it actually paved the way for more things that are coming. So, yeah. Try your best to look at everything with a positive light. Because there's is equally good with every bad thing. Sunshine Chick asks Trav, how's the TV watching going? I haven't started yet. I mean, I intended to, but I haven't started yet. My brother let me have access to his Disney Plus, but I haven't tapped in yet. I thought I was gonna watch some stuff with my son, but he mostly wanted to play the Oculus. So, all right, let's get back to this. Number 9, regarding stones, for general purposes, it is the color only. For general purposes, it is the color only which is important. And so any cheap costume jewelry will do. Did you hear what the man said, who wrote a very detailed and learned book on Kabbalah? He says, regarding stones, for general purposes, it is the color only which is important. So any cheap costume jewelry will do. So now you can save your money instead of trying to spend everything on the top tier fancy schmancy. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. Just get something that works. Like I've been saying since the beginning of me making YouTube videos, I don't spend $10 on a candle from Bath and Body Works. I go to the dollar store and get one of them little tea light candles and I make it work. Look, I've been having more success than all these people buying $20 candles, right? The same goes with these crystals. Sometimes, you'll see people, they'll get a crystal and then somebody will be like, oh, well, that crystal's factory made, right? It's not real. It's not technically da-da-da-da. Everyone has some way to tear somebody else down. But this man just let you know what the real occultists and real secret societies know. It's only the color which is important. So any cheap costume jewelry will do. Come on now. It is only for advanced work of a talismanic nature that the traditional materials needed be used. That is, the metal and the precious stone associated with a particular planet. The planetary attributions are the metals are Saturn for lead, Jupiter for tin, Mars for iron, the Sun for gold, Venus for copper or brass, Mercury is quicksilver, the moon is silver. All right. The precious stones are allocated generally according to color. Their superiority to colored glass being that the pigmentation is in the atomic and crystalline structure. That's the difference between using an actual crystal versus just some colored glass. Now, the colored glass could work too, but it says the precious stones are allocated generally according to color. Their superiority to colored glass being that the pigmentation is in the atomic and crystalline structure. In other words, the actual crystal, the actual stones, the color and the pigment is deep down in the atomic structure, not so much for colored glass. Check. Society Jack says, LOL, so my $1,000 crystal won't do. Hey, I mean, if you got the money to buy it, you know what I'm saying? By all means, do what you got to do. But the crystals that I have, the diamonds that I have, they cost probably less than $10 from Amazon. And I make them work too. Because once again, it's not the object, it's the subject that's perceiving the object. Lance Benefield says, I'm at work, but I must go write down the metals for the planets. All right, don't stress yourself out too much, because this is actually extremely common knowledge. The different metals associated with the planets. You'll find these easily anywhere if you just Google the metals associated with planets. Saturn for lead, Jupiter tin, Mars iron, Sun gold, Venus copper or brass, Mercury quicksilver, the moon silver. I've seen that in so many books. Like, that part is not a secret. I know all those by heart. Good stuff here. All right, number 10. As regards to the symbols of alchemy, the various writings are so full of intentional blinds and accidental corruptions that a high degree of insight and knowledge is required in order to take advantage of whatever teachings may be concealed in them. The position as it stands at present is that if one has the requisite insight to sift the wheat of spiritual instruction from the chaff of elaborate coding, medieval superstition, and primitive chemical science, then one has no real need of it, for one will have already passed through the alchemical process. Thus, the whole interest becomes purely academic. In other words, like how I mentioned about those older books, like Waite's Book of Black Magic and the Book of Black Pacts, and a lot of these older ones. I don't want to say Francis Barrett's the Magus, but a lot of those older style books, they're extremely coded and cryptic, and they have intentional blinds and accidental corruptions, right? So he's saying that in order to make those books useful and those symbols useful, you've got to have a high degree of insight and knowledge, right? You've already have to have a background and an education to be able to break it down. But on the flip side, if you have the required education to break those things down, then you don't need them anymore. That's just like what I said. A lot of people still buy those old school magic books because they think that they contain these deep secrets of the universe. But if you know that the actual deep secrets of the universe are going to be found here, plain and simple, right? Then you don't need those other books that are highly coded, because they're only taking from here, as we have seen over and over and over again through the past, probably a couple of years at this point. Lovely. But to continue down that path of looking at those books, then the interest becomes purely academic. CJ asks, why did they have to code that information? For various reasons. It is also, it's a case by case basis, but for the most part, number one, because they swore oaths of secrecy that they weren't allowed to share it. And one reason for that is because when working with this kind of science with multiple people, in order to preserve the integrity of the work, it has to be self contained with the group. You know, if you're talking about it to everyone, then it kind of loses its potency because now you're getting opinions and getting your thought process infected by people that have nothing to do with the work at all. So it goes from being an occult science to just general gossip. And also, of course, back in those days, the Christian church was killing people if they weren't Christian. So that had a lot to do with it as well. Many, many reasons. Also, a lot of these people didn't want to reveal where they got their information from. Another reason, like Philip says, don't cast pearls before swine. So yeah, there's many different reasons. Nuru says, Bobby Hemmett told us, go to that dollar store and get you a damn monkey statue and charge that motherfucker with your ritual and bring on Hanuman. Pretty much. Pretty much. And I think anyone who's been to the dollar store should know by now that everything you need for your ritual is there. From the candles to incense to little figures and altar cloth and everything. Everything that you would need for a ritual is at the dollar store. You don't have to go to the Botanica anymore. It's right up the street. L-Dub says, can't the yantra symbol be used for manifestation? Absolutely. DeAndre Whitley says, I definitely just spent $100 on genuine rubies. No regrets. Hey, do you, man? No regrets. I got no judgments. When I talk about stuff like this, it's mostly in general, specifically to people who don't know any better and people who are beginning or people who need clarification. But not at all is it a judgment on any specific person. ZJ says, I was listening to another occultist and he was saying some of the codes in Aleister Crowley's work was so that the reader would work both hemispheres of the brain. Yeah, that could be a good interpretation. Mo B, good evening. Good to see you always. Lance Benefield says, I just realized that the ancient Black Mayans created the word Naga before the Hindus and Egyptians, Amaru Khans. It's possible. We'll have to check the dates on that. I'm not sure which culture came first. I care less about what color they were and more about does it work. Number 11. It is impossible to make a cut and dried catalog of the various alchemical terms because they vary in meaning from writer to writer, while as a general rule, the three principles of sulfur, mercury, and salt, Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva, can be equated with positive, middle, and negative pillars of manifestation. The metals with the Sephiroth according to the planetary attribution, and so on. This is by no means a universal terminology. Vaughan, for example, who defines his terms quite well, calls the astral plane Mercury, the middle kingdom of air. Fire he relates to spirit, and the material world he considers to consist of two elements only, earth and water. It is usually necessary to follow the writings of a particular alchemist right through from the beginning to end in order to understand much of what he means. And that's important too, because a lot of us get into this habit of bouncing from place to place to author and piece to piece to piece, not realizing that each one of these authors follows a specific system. So if we're bouncing here and there and everywhere, we're missing that, and it's easy to get confused. For example, Even though Ladder of Lights by William G. Gray, he is closely associated with Dion Fortune and Gareth Knight and even Israel Regardie, he's not a part of their group. So some of the things that he said in this book are going to be different from what Gareth is saying and what Dion Fortune is saying, what Israel Regardie is saying. Now, because they're associated, the differences aren't so drastic. But here, for example, we've seen just between this book and this book, the archangels Raphael and Michael, they kind of switch places between Hod and Tifereth, right? That's due to the fact that they're following different systems. So in order to understand why they do that, you've got to, pretty much just follow one particular scientist to see where they drew their conclusions from. So just keep that in mind. Nothing here is about taking anybody's word for it. Useless Familiar says, much love and respect, Trav, and chat. Thanks for these lives. Thank you for being here. You make it so much more pleasant. Randa Leona says, what's the best book that breaks down colors? That's a good question. Nothing comes to mind right now. Chris Sear says, appreciate you for this free knowledge, Trav. Thank you. I believe that the more of us that understand how this works, the less confusion that we're going to have in this world, because there's a lot of confusion on the internet, and I'm ready for it to be done. Truth has a way of obliterating ignorance and general dumbassery. So it's better that this is shared than kept as a secret. Vincent L. Cristol, peace. MC Maestro says, gotta go, but wanted to slide through and leave a like. Always great to see you too, brother. Have a great night. All right, let's continue. Although it can be a fascinating alternative to reading detective stories or solving crossword puzzles, the general study of alchemy involves so much intellectual effort in return for so little practical knowledge that it is best left either to the expert of the dilettante. The general study of alchemy involves so much intellectual effort in return for so little practical knowledge that it is best left either to the expert of the dilettante. The expert can gain some interesting philosophical insights from some of the more spiritually oriented alchemists, while the dilettante is best employed playing about with the vast mass of harmless alchemistic literature than dabbling with ceremonial magic, hypnotic trances, yoga postures, and breathing exercises, and so on, where he can run into hot water, far exceeding the unpleasantness of any alchemist's Balaam Marier. Yeah, that alchemy. A lot of work. But for what? Okay, here we go. This is what you guys want to see. This is what everybody is here for tonight. We want to know about the qliphoth. What's going on with the qliphoth? Is this where all the powerful demons reside? Is this what they've been trying to keep away from us? Well, let's find out what Gareth Knight has to say about the qliphoth. We actually skipped the qliphoth chapter in last time that we did a study on mystical Kabbalah. It's not that I'm afraid of the qliphoth. It's not that I don't like the qliphoth. It's just that it really isn't as... It's not what people think it is. But let's see. We love the clip-off. Why? Because Bobby and Brother Panic talked about it. I know why. Because when Bobby Hemmett was on that radio show with Miss Blue, and he was talking to Lon Milo Duquette, Nehru says, "Are you saying you got your ass handed to you by the clip-off trap?" Absolutely, I did. It was extremely unpleasant. It was extremely unpleasant. One asks, does the soul reside there? Absolutely not. But let's get into it. I won't make you wait too long. Chapter XXI 21, the qlippoth. All right. You might want to turn your lights on if your lights are off. It's about to get spooky. Make sure you got your night light in the wall. Check your corners, check the closet. Make sure the closet door is closed, the bathroom door is closed. Here we go. The word qliphoth means harlots or shells. I'm already in. Let's go. The word qliphoth means harlots or shells, and as a philosophical Qabalistic concept need not keep us long. Damn, he said we about to go through this quick. Anyone who wishes to see the qliphotic demons at work has no need to undertake the mighty conjurations of Abramelin the Mage. He has only to take a look around the nearest hospital, lunatic asylum, prison, brothel, or slum. Qliphoth is in the ghetto. Here we go. That's what y'all wanted. Let's get to it. When compared to such depravities as Belsen and Auschwitz, or the general byproducts of modern politics, such as nerve gas, napalm bombs, total warfare, atomic fallout, brainwashing, etc., the old-fashioned witch or black magician out on a sex kick seems very small fry. 2. The orders of demons of the Kabbalah are generally personifications of the vice of a Sephirah, or a principle opposite to that for which the Sephirah stands. Thus, the contending heads of Thaumiel are applied to Kether as a denial of divine unity. Chokmah is given to Gagiel, the hinderers, in a like manner. And the silence of Binah is perverted into Satariel, meaning hiding. The benevolent ruling sphere of Chesed has the smiters, and Giberah, the flaming ones, while the harmony of Tiferet is shattered by Thagiriran, the litigation. The forces of Netzach are scattered by the raven of dispersion, and falsity, the vice of Hod, is exemplified by Samael, the false accuser. The foundation of Yasad is the obscene ass, and the overpowering lust of the material values is the domain of Lilith, the woman of the night. So for those of you who actually study the qliphoth, and you're debating on Facebook with your other magician friends who like to debate all day, now you know why the particular class of demons are associated with those qliphotic spheres, because they're literally the opposite of the Kabbalistic spheres. That's why. In Kether, you're going to see unity, but the qliphotic aspect of Kether, you're going to see Thaumiel, the contending heads as they reject unity. That's all it is. It's an inversion of what the actual tree stands for. 3. Whatever evil is, and it is probably impossible of complete definition, its manifestations generally appear as a denial of unity, the dual contending forces, the litigation, the hinderers, the raven of dispersion, and so on, or the crowd of gods, worthlessness and uncertainty applied to the veils of negative existence. Oh, damn. So the triple blackness of space, their opposite would be the crowd of gods, worthlessness, and uncertainty. Right? The one persistent claim of the mystics is the sense of synthesis and unity, and the fact that separation is an illusion. It can be seen then that the words of Christ giving the two new commandments were a direct attempt to seal the door of evil. The first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. And the second one is like, namely this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. You are that, right? I am the higher consciousness. You are that. Brahman is the higher consciousness. Brahman is knowledge and realization. The four Mahavakyas. Love the Lord God with all your heart. Love your neighbor as thyself. Society Eject says, yo, sounds like the qliphoth is attachments that keep us coming back to Malkuth, depression, suicidal greed, hate, and so on. Let them know. Just a cursory study will start to reveal the truth. I love it. There is none other commandment greater than these. These sentences contain the complete answer to all the world's problems, so much so that any other writing on morals, ethics, sociology, etc. seems not only an impertinence, but superfluous. 4. It is obvious that these simple spiritual rules are no more considered today as a basis for action than they were on the day they were uttered. People ain't listening now. They damn sure wasn't listening when Jesus was talking about it. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, 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 Jesus. JDRBX Boogie asks, is that what the doth is? Absolutely not. That is not what doth is. Matthew Watson says, peace. Travis Magus, peace, bro. Peace. How are you doing with those videos? I know we talked about you doing these videos, man. How was your progress on them? I know you said that you're waiting for an updated computer, but there's things that you can do even now. Let me know how it's going. Jinjini says, hear, hear, agreed. Thank you, TK Trav, for your service to the community. I appreciate you. No bunny today, huh? Lance Benefield says, the Q sounds like it was created for us to make choices between good and evil. Will. Okay, that's a good way to look at it. I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. Society Eject says, Matthew Watson. Is this Matthew from the class? Yes, it is. This is Matt from the class. Which, by the way, I'm going to be opening up the third round of the class here soon. So if you're new or you missed out on my class the first 2 times, I'd highly recommend you jump in now because we are moving on to other things and you might not get another chance. Okay, so yeah, it is obvious that these simple spiritual rules are no more considered today as a basis for action than they were on the day they were uttered. Perhaps they are too simple to be taken seriously by the involved pride of men's minds or the tangled confusion of their emotions. For the more spiritual a thing, the simpler it is. And ain't that the truth? The more spiritual, the more simple it is, man. Jesus came and gave 2 rules: love God and love your neighbor. That's it. Like, why all the hate against, this image of Christ and the church and all that other stuff? You don't have a problem with Jesus. You never met Jesus. You got a problem with somebody from the church that made you upset. All Christ did in the Bible was come down and say, hey, everybody, chill out. Love each other. Love yourself. That's all. They hated him back then. The more I study this information, the more I realize there's nothing wrong with Christ. It's just a lot of misplaced anger and hate, which was even around when he was here. If he was here, I don't know. But, just for sake of conversation, I'll just say it was. I think that's just what it is. There is a verse on this. I don't remember it exactly, but it basically says the flesh hates the spirit, right? The flesh hates it. It hates to hear anything spirit has to say. So, of course, people are going to find an excuse to hate on, what represents the spirit. Chris Sear says, almost sounds like the qliphoth be like the shadow personified progress. Yeah. Society Eject says, yo, I can see that, Chris here. Maybe the qliphoth is the tree we travel before we come into the knowledge with the real tree of life. It's funny that when Adam had his eyes opened, he chose to eat from the qliphoth instead of the tree of life, just like some of y'all. I want the qliphoth, bump the tree. I know all that stuff about the tree travel, but let's talk about the qliphoth. It should be no wonder that Adam did the same thing in the garden, right? Boom. Boom. I did it too. No judgment. I did the same thing. Raina Leona says, when I left the church, I took Jesus, the message, with me. Amen. Hey, I learned how to do affirmations and spells and all that stuff from the Bible. Not from the church. I did it on my own. Me and this worn out blue Bible with all these marks and all these circles and highlights in it. I had to teach myself. Watching my Creflo Dollar and Joel Osteen and leaning on the word. That's where I first learned how to do some of this stuff. I had to make it work because I didn't have nothing else. No friends. No YouTube. Society Eject says, and out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food. The tree of life is also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Nuru says, Doth is a winnowing device, a combination between a high pressure filter and an extruder on a 3D printer, which renders the thing, integrating or disintegrating the code and substrate. I love that. That's a better explanation of what Doth is. Like Doth and the Abyss, they're connected, but they're not the same thing. Just like what he said, Doth is a winnowing device. And just imagine, like he says, a high pressure filter, right? A high pressure filter and the extruder on a 3D printer. So if you've ever seen a 3D printer, it's got this thing that is going around and spitting out the little, stuff that makes the 3D thing. I don't know the words for this. But if you can picture it in your head, that's a lot more like Doth is, what Doth is. The middle ground between the upper triad and the rest of the tree. Everything don't go past it. It has to be of the right quality to go past it. Jenny says, you haven't lived until you watch a spirit rip through a psych ward at snack time for reals. Nuru says, a winnower is also, in ancient times, a basket and thrasher that separates the wheat from the chaff of the seed. Yes. Christian says, possibly the qlippoth be to know conflict and gain that wisdom you can't get through love, the tree of life. That's an interesting perspective. Let's continue. Five. It has been stated that the qliphotic forces were generated quite naturally by the period of unbalance between the establishment of one sephirah and another. The tree of life is, however, a glyph of the plan of God, and thus there can be no evil in it. The evil arose from deviations by man and other beings from this divine plan, and so any Sephirotic attributions are purely secondary considerations. So what he's saying here is, as we look at the unfoldment of the tree, the emanation process, what we're seeing here is the finished product. But in the moment of the 777 lightning flash, it was Kether that entered into the material existence. And from Kether, it shot out Hakma. And from Hakma, it shot out Bina. And then from Bina, it shot out across the winnowing device, separating the wheat from the chaff, to create Chesed, and then Gibra, and so on and so forth. So what he's saying here is, as this filled up to the point that it needed to overflow and it shot out to come here, in between that process, there was some extra, there was some throwaway, there were some things that didn't fit. And in that throwaway, that created the first sphere of the qliphoth. So as this was created and filled to the brim and it needed to shoot out into Bina, in that process, the throwaway, the excess, the refuse was made to create the qliphotic aspect of this Sephiroth. So you see how we're going? This 777 lightning bolt pattern, what we're dealing with here is the energy here is almost like it's filling up and then it overflows and shoots out into the next one. But in that process, what didn't remain was cast off into another dimension, which created the qliphotic tree. It's literally the refuse, the throwaway, the waste, what doesn't fit, what doesn't belong. The same way that you take a seed and you plant it in the ground, and the plant has to burst out of that shell. It leaves the seed, leaves that carcass there. Now, what was within has now become a new thing, and that seed, that carcass, is thrown away. It's no longer useful. It's trash. It's dead. It's used as fertilizer. That's why the qliphoth is called shells. It's an empty shell of what used to be in it. Like when you get that peanut and you crack it open, you eat the 2 peanuts inside and you throw the shell away. You can't eat the shell. Hell, you can't do anything with the shell. I don't even know if you can use that for compost. Do you guys ever eat pistachios? They look real pretty in the bag, you know, little white clam with the green, bright green seed in the middle, you know, and it's a little, you know, it has a little bit of flavor to it, right? But once you crack it open and eat that seed on the inside, there's no use for that shell other than to get thrown away. That's what the qliphoth is. Shell, the carcass. So the shell happened at each dash, at each overflow, right? Let me know if that was a clear description to you. The throwaway. But that's what he's saying here in verse number 5. It has, I'll read it again with that image in mind. It has been stated that the qliphotic forces were generated quite naturally by the period of unbalance between the establishment of one Sephiroth and another, right? So there was a period of unbalance between the establishment of one Sephiroth and another. Just like I said, from Kether to Hakma, at some point in that transition, there was a period of imbalance. That imbalance, that state, is seen as the Kether of the qliphoth. So they do exist simultaneously, as you could even say an alternate dimension where things didn't quite work out, right? You could even see each one of those Sephiroths of the qliphoth as an alternate dimension where the aspect of the tree didn't quite work out. And it was thrown into the trash of the abyss, the cosmic porta potty, which is this abyss right here. And there are some people who teach that the qliphoth, like Doth, or this little area here, the abyss, I should say, is a gateway to the qliphoth. And the way that it shows is like we can see this tree as standing upright, vertical like this, but the Malkuth of the qliphoth could be here, horizontally. So it's actually extending backwards. It's extending into the distance back here, right? So it's almost like a T shape. Because within the abyss is where all that throwaway goes. It's where all the stuff that doesn't quite fit. Mesukiel, shout out to Mesukiel. if y'all remember that archangel. Ridya. His name is Ridya. I'm gonna rid ya of the excess that we no longer need. Ridya, or Mesukiel, the archangel of the abyss, the cosmic janitor. Cool stuff, man. Lance Benefield says, I see it as ignorance, lack of communication. Absolutely. Matthew Watson says, Travis Mages, thanks for saying that. I need to get my videos started. Yeah, man, I didn't forget. I gotta check up on all my people. Now is the time. Take a hold of all this coronal mass ejection that's going on. All these solar flares. They said that our power was supposed to go out today because one of the biggest solar flares was going to touch down or something like that. I'm loving all these solar flares lately. In my experience, it's translating as intense knowledge of the Vedas. And also very strange dreams of the astral plane with these unfolding black rainbows of cosmic starburst. I can't even describe it with words properly. We'll save that for another video. And what's really cool is I'm not the only one having these dreams lately. Is anybody else having dreams of, I don't know, stars exploding in black and white, but in color at the same time? That's the best way I can describe it. Almost like an unfolding of a flower star rainbow thing. Anyways, let's stay on topic. Yeah, so it has been stated that the qliphotic forces were generated quite naturally by the period of unbalance between the establishment of one sephirah and another. The tree of life is, however, a glyph of the plan of God, and thus there can be no evil in it. The evil arose from deviations by man and other beings from this divine plan, and so any sephirotic attributions are purely secondary considerations. 6. The Judaic mind liked to systematize all the forces of evil as well as the forces of good, but meditation work upon the order of devils, demons, archdemons, and so on is better left alone. Man already has much evil within him without concentrating its potency by occult work thereon. Imagine that. All this work that we're doing, tapping into these mantras and these archangels and whatnot. Imagine using that to concentrate on the worst aspects of humanity. What could you possibly pull out from that? Izzy Morris says, I believe that both Asenath Mason and Michael W. Ford say that you enter through the qliphoth through Doth or Lilith. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Oh my God, zebra cake ice cream. I can't even. Oh boy. Society Eject says, for me, it's like fireworks with no color, but I can't explain it, just experience. Yeah, man. Yeah. There's literally a group of people who are describing the same thing. And I tried not to describe it. Well, shit, I can't really describe it too much, but other people are describing what I was seeing as well. And we all have this weird lack of words for it. But some people said it was like a star exploding. You were saying like it was fireworks with no color. Another girl, she actually drew a picture of it. That was pretty cool. I know what I saw. It was almost like an unfolding from with like a tesseract. You know what I'm saying? But it was like a colorful cloud. Like I still see it just talking about it. It was weird because it was like rainbow color, but not color. It was very interesting. And it was the whole sleeping period. The whole sleeping period. Never before. All right, let's keep going. So yeah, he was talking about it's better to leave alone meditation on these devils, demons, and archdemons of the qlippoth. Now, let me also point out, this is not the same thing as the Goetia. The Goetia actually belongs to the upright tree. The Goetia, the 72 goetic spirits, they actually belong to Hod. They actually belong to the upright tree. So it's not the same thing. They're called demons for lack of better word, but they're actually not the same thing as the qliphotic spirits. The qliphotic spirits are associated literally with disease of all types, whether it's disease of the body or disease of the mind. Such work is best left to the advanced adept. For the ordinary esoteric aspirant, the best approach to the evil within is, after having recognized and faced it, to starve it. Fasting is good for that. Working only upon the development of the good and spiritual qualities. By developing the contact of the spirit, the psyche will eventually be so transformed that there is no room for evil within it. Yay. Direct work upon evil forces will tend to set up a polarity and occult link with these forces, and this is one thing which must be sedulously avoided. There's ways to go about it. Golden apple tree, peace and greetings. Society Echeck says, yep, I dreamt that on May 6th on a Friday going into that Saturday morning. Yeah, so I think mine was on May 5th, Friday going into the Saturday. Pretty much the day that I started my fast, now that I think about it. Man, that was so cool. Izzy Mars asks, what if I meditate on Lilith, who is a qliphotic spirit, but think of her as a divine feminine? So I would say Lilith is a bit different, right? Specifically the other 9, like whether it's Thamiel and Thagirion and all that other stuff, that would be different. Lilith is extremely complex. Lilith is not just a qliphotic spirit. There is an aspect of Lilith that is associated with the qliphoth, but there's also an aspect of Lilith that represents an aspect of the divine feminine, the same way that Kali represents the divine feminine, an aspect of the divine feminine, right? But it's all, you know what you're doing, right? You know which aspect of Lilith you're working with, right? I've worked with Lilith and I continue to work with Lilith. Wow, awesome Lilith. But if you're working with the qliphotic aspect of Lilith, that's a different story, right? Oh, Dickie says, just think you are seeing this now, what you'll see after 20 to 30 years of work. Sheesh. Yeah, that's something that hits my mind every now and then. Ginny says, I've been waiting for someone to describe why the shell as a description. Yeah, happy to help. Number 7, to attempt to do banishing work upon evil forces often does more harm than good. To attempt to do banishing work upon evil forces often does more harm than good. Thus, there is the case in the Bible of the man who was purged of one devil only to be obsessed by 7 others who flew into the void so created. Remember that? He cast those devils into the pigs? When Jesus came, right? They were like, please don't send us back where we came from. Send us in those pigs at least. And he did that, but the pigs even still jumped into the abyss. Spiritual pathology, like medical pathology, is no matter to be trifled with, right? I had somebody today, he had somewhat of an emergency. He said that he felt like he was seriously being spiritually attacked, and he needed some help. All he really knew how to do was a lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram. So I told him, there is something that I could offer. It will be kind of risky, but if you truly feel like this is dead serious and you need something right now, I can offer this to you. Um, and really, yeah, I mean, I'll just come out with it. All he knew was the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. And that's the thing. The lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram is not a banishing ritual as in to get rid of demons, right? It's not about fighting evil spirits or nothing like that. The lesser banishing ritual has a different purpose. So if you're using the LBRP to get rid of evil, that's not going to really do it for you. So basically what I was telling him was that when you feel attacked, right? When you feel these demonic attacks, you feel like somebody hexed you or cursed you, what's actually happening is that these demons are elementals. They're advanced elementals. So their realm of activity is within the elements. Your body's created of elements, and your mind is created of the elements. Therefore, these entities are going to attack you in their realm. So you've got aspects of your physical body and aspects of your mental body and your emotional body that are related to these same elements. And this is why you feel attacked, right? Because there's a connection there between what these spirits are and what you cling on to. And I gave an example in the same way that, like, say, if I were to say something negative about the LGBTQ community, right? Just about the community or the concept or whatever. A person who identifies as a member of that community, they're going to take personal offense to it, right? I didn't say nothing bad about the person, but they're going to take personal offense, right? Take it. They're going to literally grab offense and take it because they're attached to the concept. So in that same way, because you're attached to the elements that make up your physical body and your mental body, the same way that you're attached, you're going to take that spiritual attack. You're taking that hex. I can tell you from experience, when you curse or you hex somebody, 75% of that curse and that hex is done by the individual. All you got to do is set it into motion. The individual does the rest. And they do a better job than you ever could because they're so attached to the thing that you're actually attacking, which is matter, which is the 5 elements, which is form. So what I told him was the best thing that I learned in that regard was from yoga, and that was non-attachment. Non-attachment. There is a meditation in the Chode tradition, right? It's this very esoteric version of Buddhism. And one of the meditations is, and this is also I mentioned before, a Vedic text that talks about astral projection and then dream work. And one of the early exercises is you literally envision your own death, right? You don't just imagine, you lay there and you envision yourself dying until you're dead. It doesn't stop there. Next, you envision the worst possible demons coming from every angle, ripping your flesh apart, tearing you from piece by piece, slowly, excruciatingly, like you literally feel them ripping you apart, right? And devouring you, consuming you, eating the flesh, eating your skin, your muscles, your bones, completely dismembering you until you're nothing. I'm telling you, the first time I did that meditation, I legit cried. And coincidentally, this is the same time that I was working with the qliphoth, and this was back in 2015. I remember sitting in a chair, and the room was it was dark, and it was just me, and I was committed to going through this meditation, and I let all these spirits devour me. It was pretty terrible, right? Because my imagination is very strong, and I put everything I had into it. And here's the curious thing that happens when you're doing that meditation. You start to realize these things can't hurt me, really. Like, because here's the thing. The fear of pain sometimes is worse than the pain itself. We're so afraid of what could happen, and that fear is greater than the actual threat. So when you put yourself through that threat, you realize that your fear is actually worse than it should be. So in doing so, I realized there really isn't any reason to be scared of these things. They can't even do anything to me unless I allow them to. Like, literally. And what you find is that what's actually being attacked is your attachment to concepts. your attachment to an identity, your attachment to things, and your attachment to a body. It's your attachment that's being attacked. So this is why I emphasize non-attachment. When you truly live in a state of non-attachment, there is no spiritual attack. And guess what? There are no enemies. There are no enemies. What enemy? What's being attacked? You can't be attacked unless you're holding on to something. You can't get robbed unless you got something to steal. Now, whether or not he took my advice, I don't know. I don't know if he was looking for like a specific spell or some candle to burn. I don't know, but that was the best advice I could give him. And it would work. I know it will. Whether or not he took it, that's on him. But maybe somebody here feels the same way, and maybe that can be an answer for you. It does, like what he said in this chapter, usually it's the simple things that are the most spiritual. But there's some free advice that someone else paid for that you can have. I like that. Golden Apple Tea says, it was also a dimensional shadow following me in this same dream. Throughout the dream, its presence became more prevalent. It grew with me. It sparkled like diamond by the end of the dream. They were both a part of me, yet what seemed separate, yet I was aware that they were me. Interesting. Chris here says, so it would be in good decision to learn what elements correspond to organs and so on. Absolutely. If you study the qliphoth, you're going to see that each of those qliphotic spirits relate to a specific disease of the body or the mind. Let me prove it to you, in case somebody doesn't believe that I know what I'm talking about. And you don't stop. So, the legions of the qliphoth are these spirits known as, they're in the tunnels of Set. And each one of them, here's one for example, Kurgiasax, right? Kurgiasax right here. It says, the guardian of the 21st tunnel of Set. And if you want to know what that is, the 21st tunnel of Set, that's going to be, where are we? Where are you at, 21? Right here. 21st tunnel of Set, right here. Wheel of Fortune, between Chesed and Netzach, right? So this is the qliphotic spirit of this path right here, symbolized by the Wheel of Fortune card. And it says here, Kurgiasax, the guardian of the 21st tunnel of Set. The Coptic form is Kerugunaviel. Its colors are rich purple and bright yellow. The Hebrew spelling is an abomination, but seems to be the only way to achieve Kenneth Grant's given enumeration of 315. Damn. Well, that one doesn't say. Let me find a different one. Most of these are going to say what disease it represents. Some of them represent like heart disease, blood disease, liver disease. There we go. So this one, for example, Shaliku, the 31st, guardian of the 31st tunnel of Set. He's associated with the basic fever. So maybe we can summon him to deal with the coronavirus, eh? There's quite a few books on these spirits. One of the more recent ones that I got was actually by Asenath Mason. And her book is cool because we really start working with the spider deity. And she's got these neat channeled pictures of these 21 spirits. You guys want to see it? Of course. Let me go grab it. Okay, so who is that one that we just pulled up associating with the disease? Yeah, this book has the Goetic spirits, the 72 archangels, and also the entities of the tunnels of Set. I don't know them all by name, so I'm like flipping through to look for one of their sigils. Here we go. Oh, that one's cool. Okay, so this one is for Dagdagiel. Dagdagiel is the guardian of the 14th tunnel of Set. So what's the 14th path? What's the 14th tunnel of Set? Where you at? Cool. All right. So it says here that Dagdagio associated with the 14th tunnel of Set. So that's going to be the 14th tunnel of Set. It's going to be the Empress card. So this one is going to be between Hakma and Bina, right? Now, what does that one represent? And it's going to make sense, right? Because look, we're dealing with the masculine and the feminine, right? So check this out. And the Empress card, and she's pregnant, right? So what we'll see here is that the guardian of the 14th tunnel of Set is associated with diseases like syphilis, gonorrhea, and nymphomania, right? Syphilis, gonorrhea, and nymphomania. So that's a spirit that was unable to, keep the legs closed or keep it out of everyone else. So now it brought some consequences with it. So check this out. In this book, we've got a whole path working with Dagdagiel. I know Trav's talking shit about the qliphoth. Yeah, here he is. And there she is. I don't know if I'll get in trouble for showing this on YouTube. I hope not. Don't punish me. At least not for too long. In any case, if these entities are associated with disease, it's not just causing it, but it's also healing it. You feel me? So there's two sides of it. So yeah, Chris, here's the whole reason I brought that up. He said it'd be a good decision to learn what elements correspond to what organs and so on. Yes. Just like what was talked about in Initiation into Hermetics, the first exercise was to learn to identify what emotions and what thoughts and what behaviors relate to what elements. Why? Because if you're unaware of them, then these elements rule your thought process and they rule your behavior patterns. Check. There we go. Society Eject says they have terrifying forms. They do not cause any harm at all. They simply appear on the stage. They come to test your strength and courage. They can do nothing. They cannot stand before a pure ethical aspirant. Repetition of a few omkaras will throw them at a distance. You must be fearless. A coward is absolutely unfit for spiritual line. Develop courage by constantly feeling you are the Atman. Negate the body idea that is inveterate. Practice. Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Shout out to Swami Sivananda. Good shit. Good shit. Glad you guys are enjoying it. Sanko for sound. Peace and greetings. It's been a minute. Matthew Watson says, does that say Kabbalic Encyclopedia? Yes, it does. This is the Kabbalistic Encyclopedia. I love it. That was one of my first very useful books. Society Eject says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness in this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. Look at how all this connects. Nuru says, Swami Travananda. Jenny says, love all the cross-referencing, gives so much depth. Yes, and this is how you study. This is how you got to study. Some people settle their study on, a 60-second clip, a YouTube short or a TikTok short. You got to go deeper. Their peace, what's up? The Ka says, peace, bro. Even on the streets in the hood, I'm tuning in. Peace, bro. And may your light shine so bright that other people begin to wake up. Everywhere. Wow, so many of these book covers next to me have the Tree of Life on it. All right, let's get back to this chapter on the qliphoth. Get back to this chapter on the qliphoth. Maybe Trav is just secretly warning everyone to stay away from the qliphoth so he can work on it secretly and no one can ever know what he's doing. MC Maestro says, came back just in time. Get a bottle to pee in. What the hell? Oh my God, no way. Talking about. God bless social media. Let's continue. I got to see it in slow motion. To attempt to do banishing work upon evil forces often does more harm than good. Thus, there is the case in the Bible of the man who was purged of one devil, only to be obsessed by 7 others, who flew into the void so created. Spiritual pathology, like medical pathology, is no matter to be trifled with. Hey, what's 7 plus 3? What's 7 plus 3? He had 1 demon, then he had 7, and those 7 were plunged into the abyss. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abyss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abyss. Oh no, wait. We're talking about the qliphoth, right? We're talking about the qliphoth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 abyss. Gotcha. Shiva Trident. Ida Pingala. Number 8. Up at Unicorn. Peace and greetings. Occult fiction makes much of black magicians, but this is but a result of dramatic fictional necessity. The occultist's work is as similar to the descriptions of most occult novels as a policeman's is to most detective stories. Damn. Makes me think of that meme where it shows like what my family thinks I do, what my friends think I do, what the internet thinks I do, what I actually do, right? So it says here, occult fiction makes much of black magicians, but this is but a result of dramatic fictional necessity. The occultist's work is as similar to the descriptions of most occult novels as a policeman's is to most detective stories. The small fry of black occultism are not to be worried about. All these internet dark lords. The small fry of black occultism are not to be worried about, for they are only out for their own welfare and usually come to grief before they have advanced very far. And I've seen it. Some of you have seen it. Usually they fall into three categories. Let's see if anyone comes to mind. Those seeking to make money out of credulous fools. 2, those seeking self-aggrandizement from the adulation of credulous fools. And 3, those after a drug or a sex kick. I done seen all three of them. Of these, the last are the most obnoxious. Yes, they are. Of the species, in that they corrupt the young and also have good opportunities for extorting blackmail. It sucks, but it happens. Thank you, Society Ejects. Matthew 8:31. So the devils besought him, saying, If thou cast us out, suffer us to go away into the herd of swine. And he said unto them, Go. And when they were come out, they went into the herd of swine. And behold, the whole herd of swine ran violently down a steep place into the sea and perished in the waters. I love how they couldn't jump out into the pigs on their own will. They had to wait for Jesus to say go. But isn't that what he told you about in Luke? I believe it was chapter 10 or 11 in Luke. I have given you authority over these spirits. I give you power over these spirits. Not so that you can say, yeah, I can beat the devil, but that so you can understand your place in this whole system. When Jesus gave me the okay to work with spirits and to cast out demons, I stopped feeling guilty. I stopped feeling like, oh, am I going to go to hell? That was it. That and Bobby Hemmett. Now, of course, I'm talking about years ago, not last week. The cause says internet ops, yeah. Incredulous fools. Incredulous fool. All right, let's stay focused. Number 9. As regards the big fish of black occultism, they need not worry the ordinary aspirant. If an aspirant enters a high-grade esoteric fraternity, he may come up against them if he reaches the highest grades, but in their earlier years of his training, he is well protected by the forces behind his group. Usually, when someone complains of occult attack, it is found that the real trouble is over-imagination or various levels of persecution complex, and Scientological processing usually clears them up. Like I said before, most of this stuff that's happening like the mainstream is nothing to be worried about. Like most of y'all who are talking about, oh, I'm under spiritual attack, 75% of that is you. I'm telling you, I done seen it enough times. I know how this game works. I'm under spiritual attack. 75% of that is you. Is you. All I have to do is make you think you're under spiritual attack, and you're gonna do all the rest of the work. That's just how it goes. Now, don't be scared of these people online that claim to be this, that, and the third, because if they really were that, they're deep in some other stuff. They got nothing to do with you. They don't have time to even worry about you. They got way bigger things on the plate. You feel me? But if someone's out here cursing regular people because of like petty shit, most of that is harmless. Most of that is harmless. But it becomes a big deal because you literally take it on. Like you grab it and you smash it into your chest. Why you do that? Well, I mean, it's human nature, right? We have these attachment issues, and we're easily led into different directions because we don't know any better. So please understand, if you feel like you're under spiritual attack by some black occultist who's targeted you, a true black occultist who's really up in rank doesn't have time for that. They're working with something bigger than this little petty stuff. It's probably just somebody who convinced you that they're this big ass black occultist, and they scared you and you took that bait. That's usually what's happening most of the time. I know you want it to be dramatic and like Harry Potter stuff, but if what you really want is for this attack to be over, you've got to recognize that most of it is due to attachment and these concepts that you believe in. The sooner that you deal with those concepts, the sooner you realize that it's all a game, it's all an illusion. Non-attachment is the key. That's the best ritual to protect you against these spirits. Non-attachment. I hope that's clear. If not, then maybe you can pay somebody on Facebook to do a ritual for you and get the demons off your back. I could easily set up shop and just be like, yeah, I'll get those demons off of you for $200. I could easily do that, but I don't have time for that, number one. And number two, I know better than that. Gingini says, except those that practice palo. Unfortunately, there are unsavory, petty people out there who will attack others. Yeah. Now, there is some indigenous practices that are very potent. But for the most part, what I'm talking about is what we see on the internet as far as these internet black magicians and whatnot. But even still, even when it comes to those type of curses, a lot of it is simply triggering the person to attack themselves with their imagination. But yeah, there's exceptions to every rule. But let's not go about propagating fear. If you're minding your own business and you're doing your own thing and you're not trying to start trouble, that should keep you safe, right? But if you did something to piss off some Palo person, like how did you get there in the first place? Like, what did you do to make a Palo Mayombe practitioner curse you? Like, what did you do to go out of your way? You know what I'm saying? The average person isn't gonna just randomly get hexed and cursed. But anyways, let's continue. Number 10, if one really feels oneself to be up against any black occultism or even any evil arising up within oneself, the best defense lies in calling upon the regenerative power of Christ. They didn't want to hear that. They didn't want to hear that. We got away from the church. Now you're telling me, Mr. Occult Man, that Jesus is the way? Well, if you're going to open yourself up to get cursed and attacked, you might as well take the advice. If one really feels oneself to be up against any black occultism or even any evil arising up within oneself, the best defense lies in calling upon the regenerative power of Christ. However, evil is not usually so unsubtle as to appear as a horrific nightmare vision. The usual method is to masquerade as good. The politicians have discovered this, and one can credit the powers of darkness with at least an equal amount of intelligence. 11. The evil within oneself usually poses as the good as well. It has truly been said that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The paving stones are more often the good intentions we carry out than those we do not. The human mind is capable of incredible subtlety in the dodging of the facing of its own iniquity. Though if one is very self-observant, one can sometimes detect the qliphoth within through the manifestation within oneself of any strong, irrational dislike. Mm, 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 mm. Trigger, 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 attachment, attachment, attachment. Let me read number 12 again. The human mind is capable of incredible subtlety in the dodging of the facing of its own iniquity. We dodge facing ourselves, don't we? We run from it. Though if one is very self-observant, one can sometimes detect the qliphoth within. How do you detect the qliphoth within? Through the manifestation within oneself of any strong, irrational dislike. That's very relevant, but I have segued enough. I'm not going to change the subject again, but that's very relevant. The hidden maggots of one's own soul are usually projected in righteous indignation upon others. The beam in another's eye is usually the reflection of the mote in one's own, as has been hinted in another context. Some somebody recently told me that they're not following me anymore and they don't fuck with me anymore because my appearance is different. They're used to me being the demon guy, and they're not with this yoga shit. A few people actually. But when I think about it, that's not really my problem, right? First of all, if you're on my channel, I hope you're here for this information, not how I'm dressing. And if something that I wear has offended you to the point that you know you have to tell me that you're unfollowing me now, you're not cut out for this anyways. You can go back to Brother Panic. What I'm talking about here has nothing to do with any of that. Respectfully kick rocks. I don't even have any negative feelings. Like, I hope that one day these people, because it wasn't just one dude, it was a couple, and it's all dudes too. Insecurity. This is dealing with something internal, right? This is dealing with something personal. It has nothing to do with me. The message is the same. If anything, the message is more potent now, right? But here's what he says. How do you detect the qliphoth within? Through the manifestation within oneself of any strong irrational dislike. The image of me has triggered some people more than the information has. That literally means you're not supposed to be here on my channel. I guess that's how I filter people out. Because, Brother Panic filters people out by being aggressive and blunt. So I guess this is the way that I filter out people who are not ready. Just like what Swami Sivananda said, the weak are not cut out for the spiritual path. The insecure, you're not cut out for the spiritual path. The easily triggered are not cut out for the spiritual path. Because you are going to come up against things within yourself that are going to test the hell out of you. And if you're looking at the messenger and not the message, it's going to be a bumpy ride. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And you might get bumped all the way back to where you came from on someone else's bandwagon. But again, like I said, no hard feelings. I really hope that these people will get over that so that they can see, the actual subject matter. But I know how human beings are. And I love them all the same. The cause says, I'm with you for the info, and you happen to be a great individual, which I appreciate, no matter the appearance. You could be smoking 8 packs of cigarettes, getting ahead on life. Oh boy, don't tempt me. And I'm still here. Pause. I appreciate you, bro. Lasada Eject says they gave up trying to understand the knowledge. It took 3 generations. Man, that stuck out. This man went so deep. He went so deep that whatever he wrote down, the people didn't understand it for 3 generations. Man, that is... Can you imagine having a revelation so deep that 3 generations of people gave up on trying to break it down? It took a great-grandson to break it down. Man, that's what we're dealing with. I mean, just like, Bobby Hemmett, it's a lot of bandwagon people just worshiping him because, but a lot of what he said, it wasn't for it was for us now. Like literally right now, everything that he talked about and taught was for us to understand today. It wasn't really so much for the people at that time or anyone before us, as you can see by the lack of understanding of his lectures. Will Trent says, I'm back for 15 minutes. I swear that's my life right now. Yes, sir. J Rock L says we should never look at things from a superficial aspect. Right. Because the truth of the matter is behind the mask. Lance Benefield says it was the Kabbalah in their minds. Right. The cost says, just cop that book. It's finna be a great read. I just saw the top was shooting. My life is changing off of it. I'm telling you. This right here is definitely one of my top 5 favorite books that I ever found in my life. All right, let's keep going because we're almost done with this book. Not that I'm in a hurry to get done with this book, but there's a whole part 2 that we got to get into. So let's keep going. The QLIPPOTH. Are you guys getting a clearer understanding of the QLIPPOTH, by the way? Because that was really what I was wanting to get into now. The hidden maggots of one's own soul are usually projected. They're projected in righteous indignation upon others. And this goes for that racial shit too, right? Everyone who thinks they're superior because of really something you didn't even do, right? You didn't put yourself into black skin, right? The hidden maggots of one's own soul are usually projected in righteous indignation upon others. The beam in another's eye is usually the reflection of the mote in one's own, as has been hinted in another context. You are responsible for how you see the world. So if you see something that you don't like within somebody, you're only seeing it because it exists within you. Meditate on the 4 Mahavakyas. You are that. You are that. MC Maestro says, yeah, I get all this qliphoth stuff, but how does this apply to Sitri? Respectfully. Sitri, the muscular cupid. I bet if we took the time, we could really dig up where each one of those Kabbalistic spirits actually originated from. That would also sort of change the game. Maybe I'll do that later. Like much later. The demon of 50 cents. Get laid or die trying, right? (13) The hypocritical way in which the mind works can well be gathered from the reading comparatively modern French literature, which tends to go deeply into this way of mind working. Particularly recommended are Mauriac, Marcel, Guide, Sartre, Camus, and also much playwrights as Dürrenmatt. and the existentialist writers, generally from Kierkegaard onwards. This, however, may prove a formidable obstacle to anyone who is not already inclined towards modern literature. And those who do not feel inclined to wade through many pages of philosophy and psychological analysis, fictional or non-fictional, with subsequent lengthy introspection upon themselves, are better advised to study the work of L. Ron Hubbard. Scientology is not panacea, however. It can clear the decks for action quicker than most other therapies. But a person who is clear is not automatically an epistemus. He is merely an unberated human being. And this is so rare in these days that it does seem something rather special. In other words, just because somebody has a clear mind and a very healthy, structured psyche, even though that's extremely rare right now, that doesn't make them an epistemus or a magus. But it is special. But that also just illustrates how fractured our minds are as a generation these days. A big part about spiritual development is getting your mind right. And I mean getting your mind right, because most of us have a mind that is very scattered, easily distracted, and the structure just doesn't hold up against stress and pressure. But one of the byproducts of moving up in these ranks is having a steady mind. That's why I keep saying maintain your frame. Maintain your frame. Because if the little bitty stuff in life is getting your panties in a bunch, just imagine dealing with cosmic forces that will change, that can affect you and everyone else in your life. Can you imagine channeling down some potent force, yet you're getting triggered by how people dress, or getting triggered by what Kevin Samuel said, or Will Smith or whatever, yet you're supposed to be dealing with cosmic forces? Man, you're liable to invoke a terroristic attack. The whole structure of man and the direction of man's growth is on a spiritual basis. That is, any course of action must be of a religious significance, for spirit is higher than mind or emotion, though the two latter are the usual human criteria of what is of value and what is not. May the core of your actions come from a spiritual place and not a emotional place, right? That's for children. Children, because they don't know any better, right? May everything you do be based on a spiritual significance. You hear me? I saw a really cool post from Michael Bell, which I'm probably going to do a video with him soon, talking about all this Kabbalah stuff. And the post was basically talking about how the impetus to create and to have sex and to study and to discover and to work and to do all the wonderful things that humans do, guess what? Most of that is motivated by a fear of death. Subconsciously, we know that we're going to die, so we feel like, oh, I got to do something. I got to make something. We gotta. Most of that is because of a subconscious fear of death. And I was just thinking to myself, I commented, just imagine what it would be like to live without that fear of impending death, to live for the sake of living, to love for the sake of loving, to create for the sake of creating, to live with a spiritual motivation instead of a terrestrial motivation, right? Most everything you do is due to the fact that you subconsciously know you're going to die one day, right? I remember being much younger, like, oh, I got to make a mark on this world. I got to be a musician, and I got to change the game, and I got to be remembered, and I got to do this, da, 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 da. No, I don't have to do any of that. If you look at the motivation for why you feel that you have to do what you're doing, if you can trace it back to the origin, you can really get a better grasp on what's actually controlling you and influencing you. I'm not reading this book because I feel like I have to before my time runs out. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy the study. I enjoy breaking it down. And honestly, when I'm reading this and talking with you all, I'm pulling more out of it than if I just read it myself. So this is like, it literally feeds me as well. But I enjoy this. I'm not doing it because I have to figure it out within a certain time span. In a way, a lot of the stuff that I'm reading, I know it already. I already know it. But it's so good to be able to dig into it deeper because I get to enjoy it more. And there's also the benefit of people joining this live stream who don't know this stuff and they get to learn. So I mean, there's a way to live life without just doing everything based on the fear of death. How many of you live with this subconscious thing that time is running out, that you're getting older, or the window is closing and you got to do something now before it's too late? I remember my grandma, and this was a long time ago, saying something to the effect of, if you haven't gotten a college degree and gotten married by like age 30, then you probably won't get married, you won't get a degree. And I'm glad I didn't keep that in my head. Like, it stuck out to me for a while because I'm like, wow, I'm getting close to that age. I'm not married. I don't have a degree. I'm fucking up in life. I'm failing, right? That's a horrible way to live. Thinking that your time's running out, the clock is ticking. Like, all of your actions are now tainted by death and the threat of failure. I cannot live that way. That's a waste of my time and that's a waste of my valuable energy. So I hope that you're not living that way. And if you are, please know that there's a way that is better. You feel me? You don't have to do anything because your time is running out. Live because life. Live because life. Don't live because death, the threat of death is coming. Yeah, you're gonna die. We're all gonna die. It's nothing to be afraid of. I don't have to leave my mark. When I gave up trying to leave my mark, that's when I actually started having an impact on the world. Because when I was trying to leave an impact on the world, nobody gave a damn, right? When I was trying to leave a mark on the world, nobody cared. It's only when I stopped that people started paying attention to what I had to say. Check. I love that, MC Maestro. He says, right, my imaginary parents told me today to just breathe. It'll sort itself out in stillness. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Wanderer's Path, greetings. Wanderer's Path says that's a mental virus that's spread often. Right. And I just mentioned that my grandma said it not as a slight on her at all, because I understand that was the mindset for her generation. That's what was taught to her. That was taught to all Americans in that time frame, right? A lot of people say about how, if a woman doesn't have certain things by the age of 20 something, 30, then she'll never get it, right? That sucks. That's liable to make a woman marry somebody just so that she can say that she's got a husband by the age of 30. Not because of love, right? Not because of stability, just so that she can please the culture. Don't live for the culture. The culture is literally a mindless egregore that is consuming its followers. Why would you sacrifice your life for that? Don't live for the culture. Do you, right? Do you. There's all kind of rules and regulations for how you're supposed to be, but they never asked you what you wanted. And you never asked where these rules and regulations came from. Find yourself. Sit down. Stop listening to all these other people trying to tell you what to do. And just be still and listen to your own soul. Do you even know what it sounds like? Do you even know how to do that? Chill. Be still. The answer is there. It's always been there. But you got to be still enough to hear it. A lot of people are busybody. One of the things I said in the live stream on Sunday is that for people who don't know their soul, they only know their ego. And how does ego know that it exists? It has to interact with objects. It has to interact with its environment to know that it exists. That's where you'll find people who cannot be still. They can't be quiet. They have to always be talking to somebody, right? They can't be in silence. They have to have the radio on when they're driving. They got to have the TV on when they sleep. They have to interact with their environment just to feel alive. They don't know that they're alive unless they're interacting with their environment. That's what animals do, man. Find happiness in the silence. That's where the truth is. The truth is not in yapping to people just because you don't want to be quiet. That's not where the truth is, and that's not where the soul is. You're running from it. You're running from it. Let me know if you hear what I'm saying. Somebody got to hear it. Yakety yak! Don't talk back. Al Dickey says, I swear, Trav, I read, but I get so much more in the group readings and chats. This is just awesome, brother. And yo, the chat, thanks for all of your feedback as well. Shared knowledge is the best knowledge. Yes, sir. This is the future. We are the future. All this stuff is changing and morphing around, and it's because of the work that we're doing. Us, you specifically. Not just us as the spiritual community on the internet. No, y'all, right? We're tapping into potency. So y'all are putting this work in. It ain't just me. Matthew Watson says, it's funny how that happens, like the life lessons are teaching us non-attachment. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Kevin Wise, peace and greetings. Oh, damn. Society Eject says, kick off your shoes and relax your feet. Party on down to the Escape beat. Just kick it. I ain't heard that in years. Framestar Films. Greetings. I think it's good morning for you, maybe? Framestar Film says, social conditioning distracts you from the knowledge of the divine within you. That's not by accident, but by design. Yes, sir. Sunshine Chick says, yes, I find the most peace in solitude. Facts. I love it. I like to have my extended train of thought. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like to be able to just sit on a thought and contemplate, for a length of time. I don't like to have it interrupted with something that isn't, with something temporary. You know what I'm saying? Mercer Barron says, how to find happiness in silence. Well, it starts with sitting in silence. You got to try it first. And what happens is that you start to recognize what it is that you're running from. Now, of course, you've got to deal with that first. You've got to remove that pain that you're avoiding first. How do you remove it? You got to face it. You got to give into it, submit to it. Allow it to take place in your mind and see it through to the end. You don't react to it. You don't run from it. You don't get angry at it. You feed it no emotion. Because here's the thing. If you don't sit in silence and you run from silence and you distract yourself, you're running from something. So face that thing that you're running from and do not feed it any emotion. Just experience it as it is. And when you don't feed it any emotion, you're going to realize that what you're actually afraid of is an illusion. And as it dissipates and as it fades away, as it leaves, it no longer affects you in the same way. So the more that you sit in silence and the more that you face that thing head on, it loses its power until it dissolves completely. And once that pain that you've been running from is dissolved completely, now you can enjoy that silence because that pain is gone. Now, it may happen quickly or it may happen over a period of time, but if you take it head on, every single session of meditation is going to heal you. Golden Apple Tea says, I'm eating good tonight, thanks to Trav. Well, I'm happy to feed. Black Woman, aloha. Hecate, good evening. Hecate says, solo and you cut the drama. Exactly. Crayon the King says, that's dope. Feed it no emotion. Exactly. Don't feed it any emotion. And that's one thing that I learned rather recently. The deeper I got into my meditations, the more that these scenarios would pop up that would challenge my peace. And I noticed that I had a tendency to run from them, whether they were past experiences and memories or whatever. I had a tendency to run away from them. But I learned that if I just sat with it and allowed myself to experience it without any emotional reaction, it just passed on through. And I realized I was avoiding it. And because I was avoiding it, I was holding on to it deep in my subconscious. By avoiding it, I was keeping it contained, locked, and trapped in my subconscious mind. That's what I was doing. By avoiding those memories and those experiences, I was keeping it trapped within my subconscious. But when I faced it, I opened up that cellar door, and I allowed it to come out, and I didn't feed it anything, and it just dissipated onwards, right? Painful experience, if I face it without feeling any kind of way about it, eventually it dissolves. It dissolves. Guaranteed, 1000% money back guarantee that's what's going to happen. Because of how the mind works. This isn't a guess. This isn't something I read. This is experience, and this is literally how the mind works. And once you let all those painful memories and thoughts and whatever dissipate, they no longer affect you. Now you can sit in silence and be happy. Okay. "15. It is difficult to imagine the scientific or academic types of mind swallowing this truth, but it will have to be accepted in the end, later, if not sooner. Meanwhile, one can only set one's heart on spiritual things and maintain eternal vigilance over oneself. No doubt even Judas thought himself to be in the right, he being obviously not the music hall villain of popular medieval concept, but a very intelligent and enlightened man. Picture that, y'all. Judas was actually one of Christ's disciples. He was enlightened. He heard the science firsthand. He was there in the thick of it with him. Right? Judas was right. He wasn't just some random hater. He wasn't just somebody out in the cut who was jealous all damn day. He was one of the homies. Right? He wasn't this villain. He was a very intelligent and enlightened man who perhaps thought that Christ was come to be king of the world, and that bringing him face to face with the authorities would cause him to seize worldly power and institute the kingdom of heaven on earth there and then. There can be a great lesson in this tragic figure. Judas thought he was doing the right thing, right? He wasn't some villain who snuck into the court. I'm going to betray Christ. No, he didn't realize that he was going to do. His weakness cracked on those last days. He wasn't plotting on Jesus the whole time. Got to understand that. See, we've been taught the Bible by people who don't understand the Bible. We've been taught the Bible by people with incomplete capacity to understand spiritual concepts. But what a mind-blowing thought, right? Jesus, 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 Jesus. Lance Benefield, you're exactly right. When you start taking meditation seriously, especially for the first time, your body will resist. You can count on that, guaranteed. But this is what it is. You're disciplining your soul. Your soul is disciplining your mind to discipline your body. Before you meditate, your body runs the show. Your body leads, your body drives the bus. Before you sit down and develop a meditation practice, your body is commanding you. And your body is ruled by what is pleasurable and what is painful. Running towards pleasure, running away from pain. So until you actually take some discipline over the body, that's the case. Now what happens is when you start disciplining the body will resist. Right? The body will resist. And I'm telling you, even I feel this. I heard this from Jay Shetty earlier today. A student in my class shared with me this video, and basically he was saying that, before I meditate, I don't want to do it. Before I eat that healthy food that might not taste so great, I don't want to do it. Before I go to the gym, I don't want to do it. That's what he says. But afterwards, I feel great, right? After I meditate, it feels amazing, right? After the workout session, it feels amazing. After that healthy food, it feels amazing. But on the flip side, when it comes to fucking off and wasting time, you look forward to it, right? You really want to do it, but afterwards, it hurts. It feels pretty bad, right? You anticipate Friday night so you can go drinking and go to the club, da 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 da, having fun. But afterwards, you get home with that hangover and all that money spent and that rejection, or hooking up with somebody you probably didn't want to. It feels bad afterwards. So there's a difference. Things that are good for you, you don't look forward to doing it, but it feels great after you do it. But things that are not good for you, you look forward to doing them, but afterwards, it feels like a waste of time. Keep that in mind as we move to chapter XXII, or chapter 22. 22. 22. Oh man. Framestar says he got Judas. He says he got blinded by the light of Tifereth to the point where he thought the Romans would be enlightened too. Judas was too loved up. Oh, Judas. But it was necessary, right? It was part of the plan. Judas was necessary to complete the purpose of Christ. So Judas really shouldn't be looked at as a villain like we're classically taught. He's one of the 12 necessary disciples. And he honestly thought he was doing the right thing. But a basic pastor wouldn't understand that, so they wouldn't teach that. Chapter 22, Practical Applications. Verse 1. Enough has now been given in the text of this book for anyone to seek out the keys of esoteric wisdom for himself by means of meditation upon the tree of life. For the maximum effect to be gained, meditation should be made a regular practice daily if possible. In fact, one who does regular daily meditation, even if for no more than 10 minutes, will make greater progress than one who spends long periods in meditation at irregular intervals. And doesn't Swami Niranjanananda Saraswati say this in multiple books, in Dharana Darshan, in Karma Yoga, etc., etc.? It's better to have small periods of regular meditation than it is to have 3-4 hours every once in a blue moon. You might as well not even do that. It's better to make yourself sit down for 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day if that's all you can muster. Even if you just meditate 5 minutes a day, that's better than someone who meditates for 6 hours once a month, twice a week. Sunshine Chick says most authors recommend 15 minutes every day. That's a good solid number. That's a good solid number. And the most important thing is that you start to develop consistency. For those of you who are brand new, maybe you can only swing 5 minutes, but work your way up to 10, then 15. I think that's practical. That time blazes away in no time. You fiddle that away flipping through social media. The great enemy in this connection is inertia, tamas. But as in all things, the secret of success lies in inflexibility of will and purpose, and the faint-hearted do better to leave occultism alone. Isn't that what Swami Sivananda said? The spiritual path is not for the weak. For the faint-hearted, it's better to leave occultism alone. Number 3. The time and place of meditation are important, for it is wise to let habit work for one, and it is easier to meditate at a regular time and place each day. The morning is generally recommended for meditation when the mind is fresh, but each person should experiment and pick out a time which suits him best. It is not a good thing to meditate when cold or tired. That's one of the first things we go over in my class is experimenting with meditating as soon as you wake up, in the middle of the day, or at the end of the day to see which one you do better at. And once you pick one, stick with it. Because this stuff is not a one size fits all for everyone. Some people meditate better in the morning. Some meditate better at the end of the day. And some meditate better at lunchtime or whatever. Number 4, a good attitude for meditation is sitting upright in a straight back chair with the feet on a footrest of such height that there shall be no sense of strain. The attitude should be neither tense nor reclining, but poised. This is achieved by adjusting the height of the footrest to the length of the leg. A footrest is readily improvised from books or a small box. Freedom from bodily strain obtained by poise is to be preferred. In meditation attitude, to freedom from bodily strain obtained by relaxation, because when complete relaxation is attained, meditation is apt to end in sleep. Whereas if sleep supervenes in a poised meditation attitude, the poise is lost and the student is awakened at once, right? So basically what he's saying is you want to find a position that is comfortable but not too comfortable, but also you don't want to be straining and stressing. You want to be just in a position that's comfortable. And what's going to happen is you're going to start to relax yourself. If you're too comfortable, as you relax, you're going to doze off and fall asleep. But the thing is, when you find that right poise, that right position, if you start to doze off, you're going to notice it because you're going to shift from that deliberate position. So find a position that's comfortable. That's the key. 6, meditation should not be done in a glaring light, as this tends to make concentration difficult. Noise can be overcome by the use of earplugs, though. With practice, noise will tend to have little power of distraction. After long practice, one should be able to meditate anywhere, right? So eventually you're not going to be able to use the excuse of having a noisy environment. Whether it's traffic, living under a bridge, or having kids. It is important to write down the result of meditation immediately afterwards, for this serves to earth the realizations obtained. And that's something that I wish that I followed when I was first starting, because I had a lot of insight that would come to me. And I'm like, oh, I'll remember it, and I never do. So it is good to write down what you come up with, or what comes to you, I should say, during meditation. Because that's also going to train your subconscious mind to remember it. The same way that if you want to remember your dreams better, the best and most practical way to improve your dream memory is to keep a dream journal and make it a habit to wake up and write what you dreamt right away. That's the best way to improve recall of your dreams, is to keep a dream journal, because you're training your subconscious mind to retain that information, because your body knows that you're going to go write it down. That's the easiest way to improve your dream recall. Likewise, it's going to help you to take note of what you experienced during meditation. It doesn't have to be anything fantastic. The point is that you're training yourself to retain this information. Now, that same thing also takes place in the higher level of practice when you start working with the astral plane. But that's way down the line, and some people may actually make it to that point. Most will not. That's just the way it is. Alicia M, greetings. Alicia says, wow, that's making me feel better about my meditation time. I was beating myself up for missing a couple of days here and there, trying to be consistent daily. Yes, ma'am. MC Maestro says, so during or after our practice? I would definitely say after. Some of the visuals and messages will be intense and will tempt you to break meditation to go write them down. But I've learned that that's also the power of these bhutaganas, these elemental spirits. I think part of the tease is that, okay, well, at least for me, we're not able to distract you with pain, so we're going to give you pleasure. We're going to give you all kinds of awesome breakthroughs, and that's going to cause you to break your meditation and go write it down. But I learned that non-attachment is actually what I'm exercising here. So I'll wait and I'll say, oh, but I'm going to forget it. Even if, so what? So I go through the meditation, then I write it down. And what I don't remember, well, that was from my subconscious mind. But usually you'll surprise yourself. You'll remember most of it. Hikate says, sometimes I'm so tired that I'm falling asleep. Yeah, especially if you, with you being such a hard worker, maybe you can shift your schedule to meditate in the morning before you go to work. That might work for you better, Vero. Blockwoman says, I always have nightmares of ending up back at the beginning of my journey. Well, you should definitely get used to that, because that's exactly what happens. We talk about the spiritual path and advancement. It works in a spiral. You will continue to go back to the beginning, just with a deeper understanding. There's only so much to be learned here. But the thing is, you're learning it at different levels. So if you have a fear of returning to the beginning, you might want to analyze what that means to you. What are you actually afraid of? You're not afraid of going back to the beginning. You're afraid of something else. Emotionally, what does that do for you when you think about being sent back to the beginning? How does that emotionally impact you? Analyze that, and you'll find what it is that you're actually afraid of. And once you find that fear, you confront it by saying, even if that's true, even if that happens, so what? Let go of it. It's the attachment that causes suffering. Society Eject says, if I can't break you with pain, I'm going to break you with pleasure. And hence the consistent fasting. I will give you all these kingdoms down here if you just submit to me. Vincent L. Crystal says, I use an eye mask to block the outer light. I also found it easier to tap in and exercise. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Sometimes I use my scarf over my face to block out the light. Do what you gotta do to get in that zone. Don't whiz on the electric fence. That's good as well, Framestar. Framestar Film says, similarly, would one not minding to go back to the start mark a reluctance to break through? Yeah, then sometimes there's that self-sabotage, right? Because we're so afraid of the unknown that we don't want to get there because we don't know what to expect. It's safer to hold on to what we know. That fear of success, that could be another option. Number 8, practical occult work depends for its successful accomplishment primarily upon the power of concentration. The student must be able, without effort, to maintain steady, clear-cut concentration over considerable periods before he can attempt any advanced working, and meditation will help to develop this. There's a word for this one-pointed concentration. Does anybody know what it is? Yoga fire. Yoga flame. Yoga, 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 yoga. All right. Looks like you guys do know. You guys and ladies do know. Awesome. So that's all chapter 8, right? Or verse 8 is right there. Dharana. Number 9, the picturing of composite symbols and the undertaking of journeys in the imagination, such as can be done on the paths of the tree to be described in the next volume, constitute the more advanced work, right? So, believe it or not, this was the practical stuff. The more advanced work is going to be the paths, right? We have to understand the Sephiroth in order to walk the paths. So that's going to be the next book, which is, of course, volume 2 of the same thing. Now, keep in mind, on June, we are still diving right into mystical Kabbalah, but we'll see how we're going to manage it all. We might save part 2 for after we finish Samkhya Darshan, but we'll see. I'm letting the spirit drive. Sometimes they let me know in advance. Yoga, 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 yoga. Louis, peace, peace. You win. KO. Oh my gosh. I miss those old school SNES games. What'd you do? Oh my god. Oh wow.
I mean, there's an app out there, but supposedly it takes all your money. So I hurried up and I downloaded it and I screenshotted all these and I hurried up and uninstalled it.
Nice. Jordan Castillo, peace and greetings. MC Maestro says the Blanca electric hump all day. Oh man, that was so cheating. I like the fact that Dalsim could reach across the stage no matter where you were. That was cheap as hell. And then it echoed. Why give out a blood-curdling scream when you're finally defeated? Usually you're too exhausted to even do that. Oh man, MC Maestro says, I was always scared of the faces they made at the end of the countdown screen. They're always so ugly and beat up. Good music too. Good music. The Ryu stage and the Colonel Guile music, man, those are two video game classics. Definitely gonna listen to that after this live stream. Okay, let's continue. So here we're talking about the paths. The picturing of composite symbols and the undertaking of journeys in the imagination, such as can be done on the paths of the tree to be described in the next volume, constitute the more advanced work. Clairvoyance, or the seeing of visions, and clairaudience, or the hearing of voices, should be the result of tapping the subconscious mind, and they are as a dream produced at will. He's talking about siddhis here, siddhis. So we've learned that there are specific meditations that those of you who have been on my channel for at least a year, we've accumulated certain meditations, right? And those meditations should have served to unlock certain, for lack of a better word, psychic abilities. So that same thing happens when you're doing work on the paths of the tree. Because these things aren't something that you achieve. They're things that we have blocked, and you're removing those blocks through this work. Right? Clairvoyance and clairaudience should be the result of tapping the subconscious mind. It must be clearly understood that whatever is seen or heard is going on within one's mind. That's the big secret. If you're working with the goetic spirits, you're not actually going to see a monster in the corner. Give that up. If that's going to be the criteria of success for you, no wonder you're not having success, because you're ignoring the actual success that's taking place. But he says it must be clearly understood that whatever is seen or heard is going on within one's mind. If it seems that visions are appearing to the physical eyes or sounds are heard with the physical ears, it may mean that a portion of consciousness has been split off. It is unwise to attempt any practical work until this disassociated portion has been reabsorbed. Definitely good advice. Because look, even if this is happening, and it has happened to me, that means that you are no longer in control of that portion, and it is developing its own autonomous will. You probably want to stop and recollect at that point. Number 10, this splitting off is sometimes due to an oversensitive temperament and sometimes to wrong methods of development, but in any case, it is very harmful. If persisted in, the dissociation spreads further through the mind, and the whole personality can become disorganized. I went through that myself at least 3 times, but I got it under control now. 11. It is essential to be able to close the psychic faculties at will and return to normal consciousness. That's key, y'all. See, you didn't win just because you can now have clairvoyance and clairaudience. You have to be able to close it when you don't want it to be working, and you have to be able to open it when you're ready to do work. If you don't have control over that process, you're not there yet, right? It's not difficult to tap into clairvoyance and clairaudience. It's difficult to control it. You feel me? There's plenty of people who have their third eye opened, and then all of a sudden they can't function in regular life because they keep, you know, you have to remember who's in control here, right? Because these same if you look at a picture of a unicorn, you've got 4 legs at the bottom, which represent the 4 spirits, and you got this horn at the top, which represents Akash, right? The 4 elements and Akash. Akash has to be on top. Akash directs the elements. When the elements direct spirit, that's a bad look. That's a bad look because the elements aren't fit to direct spirit. They're going to be fighting over control. You're going to be on a bumpy bus ride heading straight for a building. If this cannot be done, and if psychic consciousness overflows into everyday life, the student is unfitted for the tasks that life imposes and is obliged to live the life of a hermit to maintain his mental and physical health. High-grade initiates sometimes undertake such retreats for the purpose of accomplishing special work, but in no case can such experiments be recommended for the beginner. Man, we always want to skip the beginner stuff and go straight to the advanced, but it's called advanced for a reason. And I'm guilty of it too, right? I've done it. I understand all that, but what about this? MC Maestro says, sounds like some magical tot was, right? But that's for another story. So Sada Eject says, yep, like being drunk, aka drinking spirits. Right. 12. Also, while much Bobby Hemmett spitting his liquor all over the place. Also, while much has been said about astral symbols and forms, it must be realized that these are but means to an end, and that the highest form of superconsciousness and the most reliable form of psychism is of the nature of hyper-developed intuition. Yes, sir. 13. Given below are 3 other occult exercises which can be used to the advantage in addition to meditation discipline. Are you ready? We're going to give you 3 exercises. One of these you're going to be able to do tonight. Let's go. Number 1, an evening review of the day's events, from evening to morning, on retiring to the bed. The events should be run through backwards like a cinematograph film, with an accompaniment of comment, judgment, resolution, and aspiration. If one goes to sleep in the process, and this exercise is a good cure for insomnia, then so much the better, for the mind will carry on the process during the hours of sleep and may yield remarkable results. Oh, yeah. So, the first exercise that you can do to help you open up, loosen up, and unlock some of these psychic abilities, right, is to, when you're laying down on the bed, just go through the day's events backwards. So start from the bed and go backwards all the way until you woke up. Let it all play out. And it's okay if you fall asleep, because when you meditate on something into sleep, you carry it with you into the dream state. The second exercise, a midday salutation to the inner plane adepti, or to the Lord Jesus, who is the head of the hierarchy of masters. One should turn the eyes in the direction of the sun at noon, and I've been doing this, if circumstances permit, and mentally salute the sun as the visible manifestation of the source of all life. Think of God as made manifest in nature. Listen in imagination to the rhythm and swing of the solar system as it circles around the sun. That's pretty badass, man. You should try it. Think of yourself as a part of nature, as holding your own position in this vast machine, and feel your relationship to all the other parts. Then greet the inner plane adepti or masters as your guides and friends. A brief mental salutation is all that is required, and this can be given in almost any circumstances. By thinking of the inner plane adepti in this way, an initial contact can be made with them. And this contact is capable of development as one advances. Think of them as elder brethren, the company of just men made perfect, organized into a graded hierarchy in the service of God and man and earth. Right, so that's 2 exercises you can do. Louis says W.E. Butler talks about that reversal thing too. Right. Both Butler and Dion Fortune mentions all 3 of these exercises. So these should be familiar to those of us who have read some of their work. I really love this song. I talked to the composer, and I'm going to see if we can work out something to where he can compose some music that I can write some guided meditations to. As long as things are reasonable, I think that would be a pretty dope collaboration. I need to get some more equipment so I can make my own music again, but that's for later. Anyways, we got this third exercise, contemplation or communion with the absolute. This is not the same as meditation, nor a substitute for it, right? It is a stilling of the mind at any convenient time and opening oneself to the influences of the inner planes. Realize the presence and power of the invisible realities and the goodness and perfection of God, the creator and sustainer of this universe, into which that great being is ever coming into manifestation. Try to see yourself from the standpoint of your own spirit, and then feel the infinity flowing into you. For the sun of spiritual reality is always there and is obscured only by one's own mental and emotional clouds. If you do this enough, it starts showing up in your dreams. MC Maestro, exactly. Eggs Blackley. You already know. Number 14. Finally, there is the question of opening and closing the psychic faculties, and this is best done by some simple ritual gesture. Here we go. This is for you, MC Maestro. A circle described about oneself in the imagination, together with the sign of the cross, is adequate for routine purposes. On closing, it is a good idea also to stamp the foot on the ground as an indication of returning to things of the world. That's an important lesson that I learned from E.A. Coetting in my early days. How he mentioned you definitely want to initiate and engage the ritual, but once you're done, you want to stomp the ground, slap your leg, do something physical to jolt you out of it, right? Go cook, you know, go have some pleasure, go do something physical to engage with your body, to take your awareness out of that etheric body back into the physical. Because if you don't do that, you're going to start to blur the lines. And I played with this. I thought it was cool to have the ritual going all the time. But if you're not prepared to live that lifestyle, it will cause problems with the other people that you interact with. To be honest, I have to kind of come back down to earth so I can prepare myself to go to this conference and interact with other folks. Because I most certainly live in the etheric plane. Framestar Film says clap or laugh. Yes. Something to change your state, to get you into a different state, a lower state, a physical state. Society ejects, all good, all good. 15. For special occasions or even as a habit, for it is an excellent exercise in itself, one could use the ritual of the pentagram. Yay. This is performed as follows. 16. Stand facing east. Raise the right hand and say out loud or mentally, "In thy hands is the kingdom, the power, and the glory." As you do so, making the sign of the cross with the right hand, the kingdom will come at the bottom of the vertical, the power on the right shoulder, the glory on the left, forever and ever. Amen. Clasping the hands together, keeping the right arm straight, first and second fingers extended in line with it. Lift it somewhat above the horizontal and draw in the air before you the sign of the pentagram or five-pointed star, like that. You start here, finish there. The last movement will bring the right hand back to its starting point. Then bring it down so that the fingers are pointing at the center of the star and say, in the name of the God name of the Sephirah, I open the east. 17. Now move round to the south, keeping the arm extended so that the fingers describe a quarter circle, and there repeat the pentagram, but this time say, in the name of I open the south. In the same way, move round the west and north, repeating the pentagram at each of these points. Complete the circle by returning to the east. The circle and pentagram should be visualized as blazing in the air with a golden light. 18. Open the arms wide, parallel to the floor, and say, in the east, Raphael. In the west, Gabriel. In the south, Mikael. In the north, Uriel. About me flames the pentagram. Behind me shines the six-rayed star. Drop the left hand and raise the right hand to make the sign of the cross as before. And above my head is the glory of God, in whose hands is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. So that was a very condensed version. I certainly do hear some differences in the way I've been doing it. He kind of just breezed through the whole thing, really. He didn't even list the god names of the star, of the pentagrams. But hey, I'm sure that he had a reason for that. Hmm. But yeah, for those of you who do know how to do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram already, you know how to do it. For those of you who don't, you might want to look on YouTube for a tutorial. Dicky says, look at my hands and feet, give me some meat. Jesus has to get back to the lower state. Society Eject says, LOL, when I first did that, I couldn't stop laughing. Gotta get dramatic with it. 19. The archangel should be strongly visualized at each quarter in the form most acceptable to the student. The entire operation can be performed in the imagination, if desired, and this is an excellent exercise for the development of the visual imagination. By the way, Alicia M., are you still in the chat? The phrase, behind me shines the six-rayed star, is an aspirational one, for it applies in fact only to the adept beyond the Tifereth grade. Yeah. For within the column shines the six-rayed star. Basically, when you're doing this ritual, you're creating forms and you're reinforcing these images so that the actual forces and energies behind this ritual can start to fill your aura. So that's why you'll start to notice slight changes in your reality. For me, it started with just a general clumsiness, right? But as this energy starts to fill your aura, it begins to shift and move things. And then eventually it comes to life and it becomes real. So that's another reason why you've got to do these rituals on a consistent basis, because you're literally bringing them to life. It's not just doing it one time and you got it. You got to do these rituals consistently. Why? Not because you want to keep throwing rocks and hoping that something hits. No, because you've got to build that form and reinforce that form so that it can be filled with the spirit behind the ritual. Does it make sense? Caesar says, tell us the best thing ever. Well, hopefully I'm going to find out that the best thing ever is that zebra cake, Debbie cake ice cream. Hopefully. I get so excited about food. I am legit excited about that ice cream. You don't even know. Simple pleasures, man. Simple pleasures. Whew. I remember finding, what was it? Yeah, usually the zebra cakes come in like these hexagon shapes, but I found zebra cake rolls, and those were so good. I used to get them all the time. But yeah, my roommate just bought me some zebra cake ice cream, and oh my god. By the way, if you're not into zebra cakes, basically Little Debbie has ice cream of all the different ones. There's like a peanut butter one, peanut butter bar, Swiss cake roll, oatmeal cream pie. All those different ones have ice creams now. I didn't believe it. That's why she bought one for me, because I'm like, nah, I have to see it to believe it. Lo and behold, it exists. God is good. Number 20. The closing ritual, by the way, I went into that whole spiel about creating forms because of what he said right here. Behind me shines the six-raised star. That's an aspirational phrase because it only applies, in fact, to the adept beyond the Tifereth grade. So the more that you practice these rituals, the more that it starts to become a reality for you specifically. Just like anything else, ritual work, ceremonial magic is no different than anything else. You put in the work, you put in the practice, and eventually it becomes a reality for you. You feel me? Total Victory Ministry. Peace. Total Victory Ministry says Little Debbie's Swiss rolls. If you put them in the freezer, the cream will be just like ice cream. Well then. Excited about that cream. Let's stay focused here. Number 20. The closing ritual is the same, except that the pentagram is drawn from the left-hand corner in each case. And the archangels are visualized facing out of the circle instead of facing inwards. For general purposes, when the work is not on a specific Sephiroth, an abbreviated Malkuth name can be used. Adonai. 21. The exercise of drawing the tree is a most valuable one, for it helps to establish the tree of life firmly in the mind. It can best be constructed by drawing a vertical line and marking off equal lengths along it, say 2 inches. This will give the center points of Kether, Doth, Tifereth, Yesod, and Malkuth. Then, using a pair of compasses, set the same distance, i.e., e.g., 2 inches. The center points of the side Sephiroth can be found. Once you have all the center points of the Sephiroth, it is a simple matter to complete the tree according to Figure 1. The ability to build the tree and hold it in the imagination is, of course, also valuable. Let me know, are you able to close your eyes and visualize the tree of life? Are you able to visualize it with the appropriate colors? How many people in the chat are able to do that yet? Are you able to visualize the tree of life with your eyes closed with the appropriate colors? Are you able to visualize it around your body in a 3D form? Like this. Or should I say like this? You want to talk about your Merkaba and your body of light? It doesn't just come out of nowhere. Yeah, I got into my Merkaba and I floated to the 5th dimension. Well, did you though? Because you got to build it. Just like every Jedi has to build his own lightsaber, right? MC Maestro says, can do the 3D, but tripping on the colors. I imagine it all pink for Prana. Okay. MC Maestro says, and Guru, but that's a secret. Ah, gotcha. Wanderer's Path says, I can. The door is slightly open at all times. Nice. Wow, so 51 people and nobody else in the chat is able to visualize the tree with your eyes closed? Well, if that's the case, maybe that's your first homework. Memorize how this tree looks. Right? White on top, gray and black, blue and red, yellow in the middle, green, orange, purple, and 4 colors. Just look at it and make sure that you memorize where each color goes. Every day. If you do it a little bit every day, consistently, you'll start to memorize it. Like I said, you got to build these forms. You got to build these forms in the imagination, in the etheric body. That's how they activate. You got to build it. You build it, they will come. That wasn't a marketing technique. That was telling you how to work magic. If you build it, they will come. That's your homework if you don't know how to do that. We done been through 6 Kabbalah books. Come on now. Got to keep it together, no tweaking out by myself. Framestar Film says, been toying with the idea of drawing the tree on a full-length mirror. That sounds cool. Everything Lydia, I love when it's hot. Yeah, memorize that tree now. Memorize that tree. Necessary. Elementary. "22. In the text of this book, there is ample material for meditation on the Sephiroth to keep the student occupied for a very long time. Nothing, of course, can better supervise instruction by a good esoteric school or teacher. Nothing, of course, can better, I guess it's supposed to be can be better. Nothing, of course, can be better supervised instruction by a good esoteric school or teacher, like myself. But these are rare, and where reasons of geography and so on make this impossible, a fair degree of advancement can be made under one's own efforts. And one's own efforts may make the contacts which lead the way towards a particular school. Ask and ye shall receive. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you." Yay! We did it, guys. We did it. We did it. So, we're just looking at some of the information at the end of this book. I have not yet memorized the Hebrew letters according to the paths, but trust and believe that will be done relatively quickly. I just haven't taken the time to memorize them yet. I mean, I know the basics. I know Aleph, I know Beth, I know Shin, but I'm gonna have to memorize each one of them and where they go, and also what they mean. This is gonna be very helpful, because each one of these are associated with one of the paths. And the more correspondences that you have to understand this tree, the more capability you have with utilizing what's associated with this tree. So if you have the physical copy, this table 1, the Hebrew letters, that might be there for you. I don't know, because most y'all have the 2-in-1 copy. Then on the next page, basically he's given a column here, and I will read what it says about that. Oh, cool. Okay, so yeah, basically at the end of this book, there's just 3 charts. This one is the Sephiroth in the Hebrew spelling. Then we've got the same thing in the English version, and then we got the translation of it. So if you got the book, those can be useful diagrams for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, E. Oh, okay. So this is for this right here. So basically what we have here is 6 columns. This has the actual pronunciation of the Hebrew letter. This has what it represents. This is the Hebrew letter itself. This is what the English translation of it is. This is kind of what the English breakdown of it is. And then here's the number associated with that. And then he's written a page here that describes all that over there. And basically it says, column A gives the name of the Hebrew letter as usually rendered into English. Column B gives the meaning of the name of each letter. Column C gives the form of the Hebrew letter. Some of them have an alternative form when placed at the end of a word. These final forms are given in brackets. There is said to be much esoteric meaning in the shapes of the letters, and they are recommended for meditation, though their full significance relates to the paths on the tree. Imagine meditating on a Hebrew letter to tap into the potency of the tree. I'm definitely getting into that. Column D gives the usual transliteration into the Roman alphabet. Column E gives the transliteration of the name of each letter. Column F gives the numerological signification. The numbers in brackets refer to the finals. Certain letters, when printed large in Hebrew text, take their value times 1,000. The whole subject of numerology is a complex and specialized one. There is, for example, the question of the dogish in connection with the certain letters, an accent mark in the form of a dot. This, says Israel Regardi in A Garden of Pomegranates, changes the pronunciation of the letter concerned. Thus, he states the word Sephiroth should be transliterated and pronounced Sephiros. He also claims that omission of this fact has hampered much Kabbalistic research. Sephiros. The crux of the matter seems to lie in the particular Hebrew dialect used. As the Kabbalah arose to prominence in Spain, Kabbalists tend to use the Spanish dialect. Regardi suggests in The Golden Dawn that serious students might find helpful pointers in investigation of different dialects. These considerations apply mainly to numerological work. In magical work, pronunciation has been found to be unimportant, correct and clear-cut intention being the main factor. The use of the word Sephiroth is retained in this book as it has become common usage in Kabbalistic writings. All right, so that's that. We have finished this book. Hey, look, if you want to take a screenshot for your own, if you don't have the book itself, then you can go ahead and do that. This right here is the table of, like I said, we've got the Sephiroth here with the Hebrew spelling. And all this stuff is easily found online, and we've already gone over it in other books, but basically it's got the Sephiroth, the God name, the Archangel, the Order of Angels, and the Chakra. All right. So, for example, we got Kether, the God name is Eheye, the Archangel is Metatron, the Order of Angels are the Chayath HaKadesh, and the mundane chakra is the Rashith Hegilglim. Now you're going to find that same chart on the next page, except this time it's in English, right? So the same thing's happening here. You can take a picture of this one if you want to, unless you got a physical copy already for yourself. But say, for example, the first one is Kether. The god name is Eheye. Mosquito. I got a mosquito. The god name is Eheye. The archangel is Metatron. The order of angels is the Chayath HaKadesh, and the mundane chakra is the Rashith HaGilgalim. Society Eject says the Hebrew letter could be a yantra. Yes, sir. And finally, the third chart is here. If you wanted to take a picture of that, if you do not have the physical copy. But it talks about how, the usual translation. The crown, the god name of Eheye means I am or I become. The order of living angels. The Chayath means the holy living creatures. The mundane chakra, the Rashith HaGilgalim, means the first swirlings, the premium mobile. So yeah, all good data. Yeah, this must have been an interesting session because according to these numbers, it seems that everybody pretty much stuck around the whole time. Good. Let's keep this up. Because this information will change your life if you apply it. All these solar flares ain't happening for nothing. It ain't happening for no reason. And I'll put it this way. You might not have the capacity to break that Helios energy down in its raw state, but you can definitely translate it if it comes to you in the form of data and knowledge and arcane wisdom, right? I mean, essentially that's what's happening with these type of book studies. You're getting the sun knowledge broken down in a way that's digestible. But you want to make sure that you're doing something to feed yourself spiritually. Something. With all this unbelievable smorgasbord of spiritual energy going around, you got to be doing something to catch yourself some of it. Please. Don't rob yourself. Get you some of that sunlight. Whether you get it directly or you get it mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Give me one of them. All right. Give yourself a round of applause. Because you just made it through another book. Once again, look, how many books have you read with me this year alone? You should be proud of yourself. You are doing it. You're doing the work. You're reading the information. You're contemplating on the concepts. You're allowing it to sink in. And you're letting it change your life in a positive way. Keep going. Keep going. Keep the momentum. This is good. This is a great thing. But we did it. That's book one, completed. As I mentioned before, we're going to continue with this right here, Samkhya Darshan. Yesterday morning, I read the introduction, chapter 1 and chapter 2. So if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. Especially if you don't have the physical copy yet. Go ahead and check out the first 3 sections. Powerful stuff in this book right here. As you can see, it's highly highlightable, right? You want to learn the secrets of the universe? Here it is. Here it is. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars, right? The work has been done for you. All you got to do is tap in. Get this book if you don't have it. This is next. This is now, actually, I should say. Look at the similarities here. Look at the earth, and then you got the sky. Symbolically, we're talking about Purusha and Prakriti. Look at this one right here. Same thing. You got the earth, and you got the sky. You see that? Look at this one right here. You got the earth and the sky. Purusha Prakriti. I guess we could also make a case for this one. All right. That was good. That was good. La 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 la. Alicia M says Malkuth and Kether too. Yep. All right. Good to go. See, Ryan Gordon says, thanks for putting me on this book. Thank you for putting yourself through it, bro. Matthew Watson says, I appreciate your advice and wisdom, Trav. Appreciate you being here. Oh my goodness. What time is it? 11:33. Okay, that's not bad. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed. We just finished yet another book. We did it. It's complete. Now we're gonna tackle another one. Eventually, we're gonna get to part 2. But we'll see how it goes. Have a good night. You deserve it. You deserve it. You're amazing. Woo! Ric Flair. T-Dog, first comment. All right. Up at a unicorn. I hope you're doing better. Good to see you. All right. So yeah, that's that. Stay motivated. Stay focused. Do you. Peace and gratitude. Once again, you don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. Life is good. It really is. It really is. And all the things that you want, all the blessings, all the good stuff is there for you. But you got to get your mind right to be able to receive it. Got to get your mind right to be able to receive it. And that doesn't have anything to do with getting more things. That has everything to do with letting go of things. All right? So be good to yourself. Have a good night. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys. Peace.